Chapter 87. Mo Peng's short and fat body moved forward like a fat groundhog. Luo Shuqing, who was behind him, couldn't bear to look at him and coldly stared at him. If you are ignorant and incompetent, then don't speak without thinking. How am I ignorant and incompetent? Are you saying that my A's in all 7 subjects are just there for you to trample on? Mo Peng had a wronged expression on his face. He clearly wanted to liven up the atmosphere. How did he get such a reputation? It was his father who knew him well. He knew that he couldn't stand the pressure of his menopausal mother, and was just here to join in the fun. He casually explained and brought him into the circle of discussion. Student and staff are just code names. They have their own specific meanings. Are you not interested in them? As long as he could hide from this old lady, he would be interested in anything. Mo Peng was thick-skinned. He chuckled and said, "Isn't there one now? Back then, you chased after me and wanted to instill this thing in me. Now that the seed has sprouted." He snatched the notebook from Luo Nan's hands as he spoke. He saw the flexible e-ink screen interface and was stunned. What effect is this? It looks like I'm soaking in water. Mo Peng's description was extremely apartment. Right now, the second layer of the drawing software's interface seemed to be submerged in muddy river water. The 5-story tower structure that was close to the diagram of Maslow's hierarchy of needs was practically completely submerged in the water. It looked as if there was a layer of dusky membrane separating it from the rest of the cards. The sketches that Luo Nan had created were even more blurry and indistinct. Luo Nan didn't know what was going on, but he had a faint feeling that this sort of scene was related to his own ability. He didn't want to discuss it further, so he took the notebook back and closed it. It's nothing, it's just a screensaver. The effect of this lie was very touching. However, Mo Peng was very clear about Luo Nan's awkward temperament. He knew that Luo Nan didn't want to talk about it, so he didn't ask. He still used the social format diagram as a life-saving straw. Brother, master. Imparting knowledge and dispelling doubts refers to you. Tell me, what do those code names mean? Grass is growing in my heart. Luo Nan glanced at his uncle. Luo Nan was currently adjusting the car's AI function. It seemed that he no longer participated in the conversation between youngsters. On the other hand, his aunt, who was sitting in the back seat, was looking at them quietly with a dazed expression. The atmosphere in the carriage was a little subtle. Luo Nan thought for a bit and spoke in a soft voice. The original intent of establishing this model was to explain the effects of an individual on the social format and the structure of relationships. Social format? Mo Peng was stunned. Fortunately, he was the grandson of the Luo family. Even if he was not interested in formatting theory, he still had some basic concepts. It refers to the structure of society, right? The collective composition and way of existence of human beings that affects individuals and changes nature. Luo Nan gave Mo Peng a thumbs up when he heard this. Though it wasn't that precise, it saved Luo Nan a lot of talking. Every country, tribe, region, and human collective must have their own specific social structure. Through this format, a steady stream of new social individuals would be produced. At the same time, nature would be transformed and new resources would be obtained to provide for the existence and operation of the society. Every social individual will be branded with the social format, and to a certain extent, will produce a counterforce to the social format. Students refer to learners. They can only accept the one-way indoctrination of the social format. They are not considered complete social individuals and are unable to be of any use. Employees refer to workers. They are the basic social individuals. They possess a certain ability to survive independently and maintain the basic operation of the social format. Technicians refer to promoters. Their advantage over employees lies in the fact that they can already optimize the social format and increase the efficiency of the operation of the format. Clergymen refer to the enlightened. They have a relatively complete understanding of the social format and begin to consciously utilize the power of the social format. Politicians refer to the innovators. They are the higher-level enlightened. While utilizing the social format, they also carry out a conscious transformation of the format in an attempt to maximize the benefits, Mo Peng was worthy of being an excellent student with all 7 grades. He immediately spoke when he heard this. It sounds like a certain variant of the theory of hierarchy. Then the question is, what is the basis for dividing these classes and strata? Is there a unified standard? Luo Nan was silent when he heard this. He felt the gaze of his uncle from the side at this time. He raised his head and their gazes met. He revealed a bitter smile. The standard is me. I am the standard. Luo Yuandao picked up a rectangular block of wood in the independent ward of Anhai Sanatorium Center. He gently placed it on the wall that was half the height of a person in front of him. His fingers were trembling. The various diseases of his nervous system had pretty much destroyed his body. His originally tall stature had already collapsed. His entire body was just skin and bones. He was completely emaciated and deformed. He appeared to be incomparably weak. Luo Yuandao wasn't even 80 years old this year. In this day and age, he could be considered to have just entered old age. Some people hadn't even retired yet. However, he was already infinitely close to the end of his life. Even though he was still stubbornly standing, he was still constructing his work. Even though his fingers and arms were trembling, when the building blocks fell to their positions, they were all upright and seamless. He was able to obtain this result because he had been controlling it back and forth for nearly half an hour. He was determined not to let go until he obtained the final, perfect result. A smile appeared on his withered and dry face. It was clear that Luo Yuandao was extremely satisfied with the structure in front of him. In fact, it wasn't just in front of him. All around him were short walls made from building blocks. Luo Nan and Mo Peng could only talk to him through the short walls. The high-level nurse next to Luo Yuandao was a very patient middle-aged woman surnamed Hong. She saw that the building blocks had been placed, so she asked him softly from the other side, "Old man, this piece is done. Let's take a break?" Luo Yuandao ignored her. He was in a good mood, so he wasn't stingy in answering his grandson's questions. He grinned like a gigantic laughing skeleton. "I created the theory. Of course it uses me as the standard. It must serve me. Haven't you heard, all things are for me? My heart is the universe. I am the common lord of all things. I am the center of the universe." Mo Peng turned his head away a bit awkwardly. It was really hard for a normal person to endure this stubborn and crazy old man's logic. Right now it was very difficult for him to endure it. His parents, who were always by his side in the past, seemed to have gone to consult about the old man's condition. They weren't here, so he didn't even dare to speak. He felt more and more uncomfortable. However, what made Mo Peng feel even more uncomfortable was that his cousin, who was standing next to him, seemed to be very engrossed. He was even a bit fanatical. "Oh my God!" Luo Yuandao picked up another building block and raised it in front of his eyes. He continued his lecture. "I possess the principles of heaven and earth. I can bestow the roots of all things. Just like this block of wood. It can be square, but it can also be round. Square and round are nothing more than external appearances. I can even change its internal root nature. What's so special about its external appearance? I used it to construct this temple. This is my domain. If I want it to be square, then it will be square. If I want it to be round, then it will be round." The building block fell as he spoke. But this time, he was too excited from speaking. He didn't place it in the right place, so it fell all of a sudden. Luo Yuandao reached out his hand to grab it by reflex. His weak body couldn't maintain its balance and he fell straight forward. Chapter 88. Nurse Hong rushed over and helped Luo Nan straighten up the old man. She said over and over, "It's okay. It's okay. There's cushioning equipment to prevent falling." It was unknown whether these words were meant to comfort others or to comfort herself. Luo Nan carefully supported his grandfather's shoulder, not daring to touch his arm. He felt that the old man's arm was as thin as a hemp stick. He could break it with just a bit of force. But Luo Nan felt his chest sink a bit at this time. Luo Yuandao's hemp stick-like arm was pressing against his chest, pushing him away. Luo Nan remembered that his grandfather didn't like other people to have physical contact with him. He didn't dare to resist. He saw that Nurse Hong was already in place, so he took advantage of the situation and retreated, pulling apart the distance. Luo Yuandao laughed at this time. His vocal cords rubbed out a hoarse laugh, revealing a strange feeling of joy. You may have destroyed my shrine, but you can't stay in my country for long. On the other side, Mo Peng, who was a bit slow in reacting, didn't make it in time to rescue the old man. He finally couldn't help but touch his forehead with his palm to alleviate the awkwardness. Luo Nan didn't care about his grandfather's strange train of thought. He saw that the loose-leaf notebook that had been clamped under his elbow had fallen onto the messy rubble of building blocks. He bent over to pick it up. His fingertips had just touched the cover when he heard a low roar, "My spoils of war." Luo Nan was stunned for a moment. A shadow swept over him. If he hadn't instinctively leaned back and Mo Peng pulled him, he would have been swept by Luo Yuandao's toes. Nurse Hong controlled the old man's balance in a flurry. Her mouth was constantly comforting him. "Old man, the spoils of war are still here. They're still here." She hurriedly gave Luo Nan and Mo Peng a meaningful glance. The two could only retreat and pull apart the distance when they saw this. "Bring it over. Give it to me." Luo Yuandao clearly looked a lot crazier than before, but his spirit was strangely vigorous. He was giving orders to people. Nurse Hong was adjusting the balance device. She couldn't free her hands for a time, so she indicated for Luo Nan to come forward. "It's fine. Old man, 1 yard at a time." In other words, he had already reached the stage of lacking logic. Luo Nan took a deep breath and suppressed the sourness in his heart. He walked forward to pick up the notebook. Luo Yuandao reached out to take it. The weight of the thick notebook was a bit too heavy for him. He trembled when he received it with one hand. Special Nurse Hong wanted to help but was rudely rejected. Although his arms were trembling and it looked like he would fall at any moment, he still flipped open the book and scanned through its contents. He knew that Luo Yuandao's current mental state was at a completely incomprehensible level. But at this time, Luo Nan's heart had the apprehension of handing in homework. He stared at the old man, wanting to see what the result would be. Bullshit. Bullshit. Luo Yuandao had a face of disdain when faced with the messy lines that Luo Nan had hastily drawn. In a sense, this was the most normal reaction. Luo Nan couldn't say what he was feeling in his heart. But in the next second, Luo Yuandao's movements froze. His gaze stopped on the paper, and his eyes seemed to focus. At this moment, he flipped to the page where the prison sketch had been messed up. For a full 5 seconds, Luo Yuandao did not move at all. Luo Nan's heart suddenly skipped a beat. He stared at his grandfather's face, which had already lost its form. Traces of weak flames of hope suddenly ignited within him. He leaned forward a bit, trying to see his grandfather's reaction a bit more clearly. Luo Yuandao cast a sidelong glance when he felt Luo Nan's movements. He suddenly said, "You've grown up." Luo Nan's heart thumped. He couldn't help but think, can he see it? He can understand. Luo Nan couldn't help but move forward again, but a withered arm pressed against his chest once more. Then, Luo Nan saw a pair of crazed and ice-cold eyes. "You've come to kill me, grandfather." Luo Nan's heart suddenly clenched, but he was pushed away by Luo Yuandao with great force. Luo Nan staggered and nearly fell down on the messy building blocks under his feet. Luo Yuandao was even more furious when he saw Luo Nan trampling on the building blocks. "My shrine. You're plundering my divine kingdom. My students, my employees, my technicians, my priests, my politicians. Mine. They're all mine." Luo Nan had just been supported by Mo Peng. He was stupefied on the spot when he heard this. But then he saw Luo Yuandao, who couldn't even stand stably, begin to move crazily. Luo Yuandao raised his leg and dropped it, completely kicking down the remaining 3 relatively intact building blocks. Nurse Hong saw that the situation was far from good. She had already injected a tranquilizer, but she couldn't control it for a while. Grandfather. Grandfather. Luo Nan and Mo Peng were both frightened and terrified. They didn't know how to react at all. Nurse Hong had already called for a doctor, but it was impossible for a doctor to appear instantly. Luo Yuandao kicked over all of his creations. Then he raised his head to the sky and howled with laughter, "Fire! Fire! Let the flames burn! Burn through the darkness of this cloak! A new god will step on the bones of an old god to ascend the throne. Come! Come! Let's see who's the master of the universe." Luo Nan's malevolent and terrifying figure was like a giant hammer. It rumbled and smashed against Luo Nan and Mo Peng's hearts. In the end, the two of them were only 15 or 16-year-old youths. They wanted to help, but they were afraid of causing trouble when faced with this sort of scene. They were at a loss for a time. Finally, the doctor rushed over. Behind him were actually Mo Haihang and Luo Shuqing. And at this time, the two of them didn't know what to say. They just moved out of the ward like puppets, standing stupidly and waiting. At this time, it could be said that every second felt like a year. Actually, it didn't take long. 10 minutes at most. Luo Shuqing walked out of the ward. She faced the two people who were still in a stupefied state and laughed. "It's nothing. Old people are often like this. They just talk a bit more." Luo Shuqing's relaxed attitude made Luo Nan and Mo Peng feel much better. They wanted to ask about the situation in detail, but they didn't know where to start. Luo Shuqing looked at her watch. "It's getting late. It's also time for your grandfather to rest. Let's go eat first. The food here is pretty good." "Oh right. Your grandfather should be taking a walk outside at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Do you guys want to accompany him?" "Okay." Luo Nan immediately agreed, but then he was a bit worried. "If I'm here, will he? Who do you think you are?" Luo Shuqing laughed again. Then she let out a breath and looked at Mo Peng. Actually, Mo Peng wasn't quite willing to throw his precious weekend time in the mental hospital, but Luo Nan had made it clear. He could only shut his mouth. At most, he would play a few more rounds of 10 days in the wilderness. Yeah. If he could pull Luo Nan over to fight, he could crush him a few dozen times in a row. That would be even better. Luo Shuqing laughed. "Then it's decided." "Oh right. When I was consulting with the doctor just now, he recommended a deep sleep nutrition pod. It can ease the mood and reduce stress. Let's go try it out as a family. We can also finish our afternoon break on the way." Huh. Chapter 89. No matter what the two youngsters thought, Luo Shuqing and her husband, the always rational Dr. Mo Haihang, were all excited about the health pod. After lunch, they brought the two youngsters to a side building of the sanatorium. Though Luo Nan and Mo Peng seemed to yield on the surface, they were planning in private. They would firmly oppose if they really had to fork out the money. They couldn't let the two elders be fooled. The so-called health pod was arranged quite like that. It was an individual room layout, and each room had specialized nursing staff. It didn't look like a nap, but more like a high-standard spa. In this day and age, as long as human resources were involved, a high price could be casually called out. Mo Peng's eyes lit up when he saw the sweet smile on the young nurse's face. He had long forgotten about the fooling problem. He was practically impatient to go in and experience it. Luo Shuqing had already booked 4 rooms in a row. They each chose one and went in. Luo Nan and Mo Peng were next to each other. Luo Nan's sensing range just so happened to cover the neighboring room. He heard Mo Peng ask shyly, "Do you want to take off your clothes?" Luo Nan was too lazy to pay attention to the other side. Right now in his room, the beautiful nurse was explaining the various benefits and basic operations of the health pod to him as part of the service. Luo Nan treated this as an advertisement and forgot about it. He was more interested in the health pod itself. Perhaps it was due to the imprint left behind by his special birth experiences, but Luo Nan had a special feeling towards health pods and health pods. It wasn't a feeling of liking or loathing. It was a kind of trance from deep memories. When a health pod was placed in front of him, it was like a hypnotist setting up a suggestion. It would push him into the deep and chaotic deep memory zone. The feeling was very complicated and chaotic, but he didn't hate it. Really? Luo Nan followed the nurse's instructions and entered the pod. The lid closed, and soft and soothing music sounded. It was still like the faint scent of flowers, faintly discernible. Everything proceeded according to the normal procedure. The lid made of special materials gradually turned from transparent to blurry, slowly cutting off the light from the outside world. Luo Nan closed his eyes, thinking that an afternoon nap like this wasn't bad. But he suddenly opened his eyes 7 or 8 seconds later. Something's wrong. The smell inside isn't right. Luo Nan reflexively went to press the open button inside the cabin. A muffled sound was heard at this time. Someone was lightly tapping the health pod's panel. The hatch cover turned from fuzzy to transparent once more. But Luo Nan reacted quickly, and the hatch cover flipped up. The person outside let out a cry, nearly having his arm pinched. Luo Nan suddenly sat up. On the mental plane, the heavily chained crow buzzed as if it wanted to come out. This was where his strongest power lay. However, at this moment, he came face to face with the person outside the cabin. The beautiful nurse had already disappeared. At this time, standing outside the cabin was a young doctor wearing a white coat and glasses. He looked quite elegant. If he spoke less, perhaps he would give people a better impression. Are kids nowadays all so impatient? The young doctor rotated his arms symbolically and coughed once. He adopted a very proper and serious attitude. Student Luo Nan. I am your attending doctor, Zhang Yuliang. Luo Nan stared coldly at him at first, but gradually, the image of this young doctor, who was pretending to be serious, overlapped with a certain person in his memories. It made Luo Nan a bit uncertain. It wasn't until the doctor finished his self-introduction and Luo Nan saw the nameplate on his chest that Luo Nan made a probing judgment. You are Bro Octopus? Cough, Zhang Yuliang. Yuliang as in Yuliang. The more the young doctor spoke, the more certain Luo Nan was. He let out a breath and relaxed, but he couldn't help but want to laugh. On the night of the 28th, it was this young aptitude user who was wearing a funny t-shirt with a cartoon octopus. While he was laughing and joking, he showed his exquisite ability to make hallucinogens and turn dozens of people in the room into stupid pigs with confused minds. And now, he was wearing a classic white coat and a pair of gold-rimmed glasses. It was as if he was 10 years older in an instant. At first glance, he looked like a highly educated professional doctor. But the hip-hop flavor that was carved into his bones, along with the deliberate movement of his eyebrows, broke through the false shell in the blink of an eye. Luo Nan was most familiar with this side of him. Hey, hello bro octopus. Luo Nan was still thinking about Octopus's superb drug concoction methods. As a semi-professional, Luo Nan quite admired Octopus. In addition, an outstanding master of hallucinogens was working as a doctor in a mental sanatorium. It seemed quite fitting. I was supposed to have a leisurely weekend shift, but it was ruined by a certain someone. I don't feel good at all right now. Octopus ignored Luo Nan's good intentions. He flipped the flexible screen in his hand and found the relevant information. He spoke in cadence. Schizophrenia. Severe mental illness. It occurs in 1% of the world's population. It is related to hereditary factors. People with a history of schizophrenia in their family will have a higher chance of contracting the illness by several times. The examinee's grandfather was a patient with severe schizophrenia. 4 years ago, the examinee himself was admitted to the hospital for treatment due to the dysfunction of his neurotransmitter system, causing his heart and lungs to fail. He was even given a notice of critical illness. The hospital's diagnosis at the time was that if the illness were to progress further, the possibility of the illness being hereditary and developing could not be ruled out. Improper electrical stimulation, drug stimulation, and sudden emotional stimulation could all lead to the illness. TSK, Mr. Psychic. I really didn't know that you were this kind of person. Luo Nan finally came to a realization at this time. Bro Octopus, my aunt and the others. Mrs. Luo Shuqing claimed that a certain someone was talking to himself several times this morning. Moreover, he said things like, "How will XX company be handled? I'll accompany you anytime," and other such offensive and cautionary words. Moreover, these kinds of words have no obvious connection to the environment of their daily lives. So, Mrs. Luo Shuqing suspects that this is the early symptoms of schizophrenia. She's also worried about a certain someone's psychological resistance, so she used this method to do an examination. It's a pity that our sanatorium's high-end health pod was used as an anesthetic. Luo Nan didn't know what to say for a time, but he soon came to a realization. My aunt and the others definitely wouldn't have been able to think of this convoluted idea. Octopus spread his hands. Isn't it the duty of a qualified doctor to solve the problems of patients and their families? Moreover, this health pod can perform brain imaging. It's very convenient. He looked at his watch. Your family's elders are about to arrive. Are you going to explain things to them, or are you going to obediently lie down and put on a show? Luo Nan laughed bitterly. He immediately lay down and closed his eyes. A smart choice. Oh right, I won't violate the taboo of the society and scan your body structure. I'll just use a fake to deal with it. I'll have to trouble Bro Octopus. The lid of the pod closed up once more, isolating the outside world's light. But in reality, Luo Nan was still able to sense the outside world's environment. He was able to see his aunt and uncle push open the door and walk in. From head to toe, their expressions were filled with seriousness, caution, and worry. Chapter 90. Luo Nan maintained his absent-minded state all the way until Octopus opened the health pod. It's not easy to fool them. They are half-experts in this field. Octopus took off his decorative glasses and fanned himself with the flexible screen to express his feelings of hardship. It's over for the time being. They only said that the symptoms were not obvious at the moment and did not dare to deny it completely. Otherwise, they would definitely take him to another hospital. Alright, I admit that it's not safe even now. Be prepared. That's right. Luo Nan was a bit at a loss. How could he prepare for this? In the days to come, he would be treated as a schizophrenic by his aunt and uncle? Octopus saw Luo Nan's depressed mood and chuckled, "Don't get tangled up." In a certain sense, they weren't wrong. You know, from a certain perspective, every ability user has schizophrenia. Luo Nan raised his head in shock. That's not what I said, it's President Ouyang's wise opinion. Ouyang Chen, do you know President Ouyang? Yes, the one who invented the hexaear. Yes, that's him. He was the one and only registered extraordinaire in the Xia City Society. He started with the mental enhancement, and he was the absolute authority in this field. You're also a spiritually enhanced type. You can learn from him later. Octopus clearly admired President Ouyang very much. He gave Luo Nan an introduction before saying, President Ouyang once said that as an ability user, we often need a set of logic in the normal world and another set of logic in the inner world. Moreover, every awakened should also have their own set of logic. The logic of the normal world helps you avoid making a joke out of your basic daily life. It allows you to act according to the rules of law and morals. It also teaches you simple principles of socializing and working, allowing you to become a normal human being. Luo Nan went, oh. He discovered that this definition was very similar to the social format. Of course, any sociological theory would have similar concepts. As for the inner world logic, it's the logic of a small circle of ability users. Things like revering strength, focusing on one's own strength, and using one's abilities to differentiate between superior and inferior classes. Originally, it was very simple. He just had to fool around in his own circle, like the MMA association. But the problem is that the inner world has a strong influence on the normal world. This causes the logic of the inner world to distort the logic of the real world. Well, isn't it like schizophrenia? Or should I say, the epitome of all mental illness? Luo Nan nodded, it's a bit similar. Of course they look alike. If there is a difference, it is that psychopaths cannot use their logic to affect reality. Their logic is illusory, fragile, and absurd. But we can, and our logic has become the rule that a considerable number of people must recognize. Octopus made a horizontal gesture. If we were to apply this principle to self-logic, remember, President Ouyang suggested that every awakened should have a set of self-logic. Luo Nan inexplicably sucked in a breath. He felt a certain feeling of déjà vu. It was like a gradually rising tide, flooding his chest, his nose, and his head. Octopus continued, the so-called self-logic is a set of self-consistent theories that ability users use to explain their own abilities. As long as you can form a complete logical chain from beginning to end, and can actually verify it, then no matter how ridiculous it is, it's possible. Just like those madmen in the secret orders. Their actions are absurd, but it doesn't affect their strength. It's because they have an internal logic, and use this logic to successfully distort the external world. We can also give an example. Your grandfather, Mr. Luo Yuandao, is that okay? Luo Nan was silent. Octopus continued to speak like this, I've seen your grandfather's symptoms. Disregarding the pathological changes in his nervous system, he is the typical manifestation of self-logic being unable to defeat external logic. If he really does possess an extremely powerful strength that can affect the entire universe, then he is correct. It is appropriate to say that he is the center of the universe, the truth of the world. But in reality, it is impossible to possess this level of strength. Therefore, us ability users cannot fall into delusions. We must abide by reality. We must ponder and revise our internal logic according to our true level of strength. This is so that our logic can be perfectly realized in the external world. Octopus was a bit tired from speaking so much in a single breath. He spread his hands and concluded, from this point of view, every ability user is a psychopath who attempts to use self-logic to distort objective reality. In addition to the dual influence of the logic of the normal world and the logic of the inner world, it is hard for us to avoid being tired. Therefore, some people want to push down the wall, allowing normal people to adapt to the existence of ability users, allowing ability users to dominate this world. There are also people who completely ignore it, don't care, and don't come into contact with it. Even more extreme are those who don't recognize the logic of the normal world. They don't treat non-ability users as people. There are also those who kill. Oh, it's quite unfortunate that you entered this enormous mental hospital at such a young age. You can only suffer a bit more. If you must make a suggestion, it would be better for you to rely on the logic of the inner world. This can be considered a type of compromise. After all, you aren't an awakened yet. You have developed self-logic early on. Perhaps you really will become crazy. And if you follow the logic of the normal world, you will be far too clumsy. Therefore, participate in a few more society activities. Get to know a few more friends. Form your own circle. You will slowly adapt. This can be considered a piece of advice from Senior. Luo Nan's brain was stuffed with a lump of logic. His brain was more or less muddled. But he could see that Brother Octopus was a warm-hearted person. These words were admittedly a bit mysterious, but they were very helpful to him. Brother Octopus really did want to enlighten him, so Luo Nan immediately expressed his thanks. Octopus chuckled and waved his hand, no need to be polite. It's quite hard to get a chance to curry favor with a psychic. Just don't let me charge too far to the front when we move in the future. I'm just a pharmacist. I'm not cut out to charge and break through enemy lines. Of course, this was just a joke. But Luo Nan suddenly thought of a matter that had been hanging in his mind since a long time ago when he heard Octopus mention a pharmacist. He muttered to himself for a moment and then said, Brother Octopus has done a lot of research in compounding psychotropic drugs? Then do you accept orders? Of course I accept. It's fine as long as you explain the use clearly. Octopus responded smoothly, but then he was startled. He changed his expression and sized up Luo Nan up from head to toe. He even rubbed his chin and muttered to himself for a while before speaking once more, Especially for a miner like you. You need to explain even more clearly. Don't tell me you have some sort of bad habit. Luo Nan didn't respond directly. He focused slightly and transmitted a molecular formula to Octopus through the hexa ear. I want to compound this drug. Can I? Chapter 91. Octopus stared blankly for a while. His eyes focused and looked at Luo Nan. Actually, if you want to kill someone, you don't need this kind of complicated structure. You just need to cut out a random portion from here. The dosage is enough and the results will be absolutely fantastic. Luckily, Luo Nan didn't need to explain. Octopus's eyes emptied once more and he sank back into his professional world. Luo Nan clenched his fist in secret when he saw Octopus's reaction. There's a way. At least at this moment, it wasn't just the concoction of the drug. The principles and effects of the drug were worth serious research by professionals. This was undoubtedly the best news for Luo Nan. He directly shared the molecular formula with Octopus. Didn't he want to obtain a similar result? A notification sound came from the nourishment chamber at this time. It was time for the preset nap time. Luo Nan didn't want to disturb Octopus's train of thought, but he thought that his uncle and aunt would be coming soon. He couldn't help but urge, Bro Octopus, give me a clear answer. Can you do it or not? If you can, I'll give you the dosage and everything else. Give me the ones in front. Octopus's words drifted. Huh? Octopus stared at him once more. His eyes didn't even blink. His face swelled with a layer of blood red. This definitely isn't the original version, right? Any normal person would be toyed to death with so many targeted neurons acting on them at the same time. But its goal isn't to toy with people, right? Amazing. Luo Nan couldn't help but admire Octopus for being able to see so much from a simple molecular formula. But then he thought about it. Octopus himself probably had similar thoughts besides his eyesight and professional level. After all, he was a pharmacist and an awakened. Luo Nan really didn't know whether he should be anxious or proud when he saw Octopus's reaction. But he knew that if Octopus continued to stay in the room and was seen by his aunt and uncle, everything would be exposed. In fact, the two elders who had left in succession had already appeared within the range of his senses. It was too late to leave now. Disappear right now and then I'll give you the original version. Okay? Octopus's eyes lit up. He didn't say anything further as he pulled open the window and jumped down. The height of 3 stories was nothing more than a single step for him. Luo Nan let out a long breath. He tidied up his clothes and confirmed that there were no flaws. He pushed open the door and left. Mrs. Luo Shuqing was just about to knock on the door when she was startled by Luo Nan's action of opening the door. She carefully sized up Luo Nan's face a few times before revealing a smile and said, "What do you think? Is it effective?" "It's all right, but there's no need to buy it specifically." Luo Nan began to act with his aunt. To be honest, his acting skills were terrible. Fortunately, his aunt also had something on her mind, so the conversation between the two was a little absent-minded. At this time, Octopus also started to harass him through the hexa ear, forcing him to pass on the relevant information. The more anxious Octopus became, the calmer Luo Nan became. Now, he had to reevaluate his grandfather's results, and make a decision. A chaotic weekend afternoon began. Actually, the afternoon passed by very quickly. After the nap, Luo Nan and Mo Peng played a few rounds of 10 days in the wilderness. Then it was time for Luo Yuandao to go out for a walk every day. The two young men accompanied him cautiously, and listened to the strange words of the old man. The uncle and aunt, standing a little apart, talked to each other in a low voice, and all seemed to be proceeding in a calm and orderly manner. The problem was that Luo Nan's ears never had a moment of peace. Luo Nan's uncle and aunt believed that they were far enough away, but there would always be some words that would fall into the range of Luo Nan's senses. Without exception, they were all topics related to his illness. In addition, Octopus's harassment came from another direction without end. Ever since Luo Nan gave Octopus the corresponding molecular formula, it was as if a bag of salt had been poured over him. Octopus's thoughts began to twitch. astonishment, bewilderment, doubt. And all of this was completely shattered in front of the living example of Luo Nan. It was just as Octopus had said before. No matter how absurd the logic was, as long as it could be verified in the real world, then one must acknowledge its existence. At this time, Octopus was sitting in the laboratory, trying to mix drugs while sighing and groaning at Luo Nan. When I see the first step, I feel that I'm an idiot. When I see the last step, I feel that I'm a madman. But when the first step and the last step are put together, I can fucking say, we're all trash. Give me another one. Just give me one more of the prerequisites you mentioned. I need to verify my train of thought. Don't give it to me yet. My logic is about to explode. My God, how could I have thought of this step? Neuronal structure mutation, growth and proliferation, retrogressive inhibition, and even withdrawal reactions. Everything is in place. Even if I had a brain hologram in front of me, I wouldn't be able to calculate it. This is the entire flow of time. This simply isn't the result a human should have. It doesn't matter if it was created or consumed. When Luo Nan first heard these words, he was nearly unable to suppress his excitement and pride. But slowly, these impassioned emotions melted away one by one from the weak and strange movements of his grandfather's body. What meaning did these praises have from his grandfather's perspective? Would this old man, who lived his life sealed within his logic, be able to feel a moment of joy even if he were to add all the honor and prestige he should have? Even looking at it from the most realistic of perspectives, the sanatorium had opened up all-day visitation to an old man whose condition was deteriorating. This was not good news at all. This was no different from giving up on treatment. Luo Nan gazed at the side of the old man's withered face. Every word and action of the old man this day flowed and permeated the bottom of Luo Nan's heart. An idea grew clearer and clearer from within. The sky gradually turned dark, and the all-day visitation came to an end. The family prepared to return to the city. Luo Nan asked Octopus about the drug through the hex ear at this time. Octopus took charge of everything. The society has a specialized express delivery channel. It is absolutely safe and convenient. Starting tomorrow, I can supply a fixed quantity. Then I'll have to thank Brother Octopus. This is nothing. Compared to the value of the 2 molecular formulas, this amount is a drop in the ocean. Octopus was still in a state of eagerness. Oh right. I want to write a paper based on the molecular formulas during this time. I want to publish it in an internal journal of the society. Can you represent your grandfather and give me the relevant authorization? Luo Nan's heart palpitated with excitement as soon as these words came out. He knew very well that he didn't have the ability to further research and explain his grandfather's theory at this stage. Then, someone who could replace him in all this and give his grandfather the reputation he deserved was one of the best choices. Octopus's level in drug compounding was outstanding. He didn't have any sinister thoughts. It was very pleasant to talk to. He was an extremely good candidate. Chapter 92. After all, Luo Nan had learned from Yen Hong's mistakes and had considered the problem of plagiarism. But the Wilderness Explorers Society wasn't the academic world after all. This place didn't seem to have the soil for academic competition and competition. Instead, practical results were more important. Plus, the status of psychics was transcendent given the current special circumstances. As long as he stood there and displayed his usefulness, no one would be able to deprive his grandfather of his achievements. After some consideration, Luo Nan decided to trust Octopus. He simply replied, "Okay." Octopus immediately laughed heartily, "Excellent. I'll prepare the power of attorney. The society will use the same format and there will be 2 notaries. Each of us will choose one. Who are you going to choose? Your secretary?" Luo Nan finally felt completely at ease after hearing Octopus take the initiative to talk about this. He thought of He Yuan's temperament and status. She was indeed the most suitable to be a notary, and so he expressed his agreement. The family had already gotten in the car and drove out of the sanatorium. Luo Nan was still sitting in the front seat. He turned his head to look at the building that was gradually turning blood red under the setting sun. He was speechless for a time. A moment later, he transmitted to Octopus, "My grandfather is here. I'll leave him in your care." Octopus naturally patted his chest in guarantee, "Relax. I never knew there was such a great God by my side. Now I know. From now on, he is my grandfather. I will definitely take good care of him in the morning and evening." My grandfather's current state. Cough. You don't need to pay too much attention to him. Luo Nan was really worried that Octopus would get hot-headed and grab his grandfather like a treasure to interrogate him. I understand. It's not good to disturb the old man in his current state. Then can you hurry up and let me see the old man's notes? Octopus was in a highly excited state right now. His thoughts jumped extremely fast. "Oh right. I just heard you say that a portion of the old man's notes were lost. That's easy. We can jointly issue a mission later. As long as we set the reward high, like 1 honor point for 1 notebook. Do you believe that even President Ouyang will be mobilized? Don't worry about not having enough points. I can share the burden. As long as it's related to medicine, give me a complete copy and I'll pay in full. Okay?" Luo Nan also smiled as Octopus enthusiastically described the situation. But soon, he changed the topic to something else. "Oh right. Bro Octopus, let me ask you again. For ability users, as long as their self-logic is complete and can be verified, it doesn't matter how crazy they are. Is that right?" "Of course. Look at the gods, saints, and primogenitors of those secret sections. Their abilities to manifest their divinity are too against the rules. They can't even be stopped." Octopus Bro concluded, but immediately after, he felt that something was wrong, and quickly added, yes, more important than logic is verification. If you can't interfere with the real world, then you're mentally ill. If you think you can interfere with the real world, then you're severely mentally ill. F***CK, I think what I've told you this afternoon is the content of the intermediate seminar. It's beyond the syllabus. Don't let your imagination run wild. Octopus lived up to his reputation of working in a mental sanatorium. He was extremely sensitive to relevant issues. He was really worried that Luo Nan would let his imagination run wild and act without any scruples. At Luo Nan's age and with his occupation as a psychic, the possible problems that could arise were far too serious. Luo Nan laughed when he saw that Octopus had the intention to continue exhorting him. "Relax bro Octopus. I know that the most important task for me right now is to temper my body and realize a balance between my mind and body. Then I'll use the dual channels of my mind and body to slowly experience this world and gradually form an answer. I don't need to be in a hurry to explain this world, right? Okay." Octopus didn't know that most of Luo Nan's words were pointers from He Yuan. He immediately let out a sigh of relief and praised loudly, "Excellent. Kid, you have the perception. You should do this step by step in a down-to-earth manner. Right now, your body really is lacking in polishing. But it doesn't matter. You're still in puberty. Wait until the matter with the human-faced arachnid is over. I'll find you a set of training methods in the direction of mental strengthening. You'll definitely be able to achieve a balance before your body stops developing in a few years. When that time comes, you should be able to rely on the foundation laid down by the old man to become an awakened." "Oh right. I'll send you my notes from the junior seminar in a bit. You can refer to them first. There are a lot of very basic things in there. But these things will still be useful even if you become an extraordinary." Luo Nan took a deep breath. "Thanks a lot, bro Octopus." Luo Nan chatted with Octopus about a few basic topics before cutting off the connection. He looked at the sky outside right now. It had already irreversibly fallen into an even deeper darkness. The street lights on both sides of the high-speed magnetic track were like 2 dragons of light without heads or tails. They extended and danced in the darkness. They seemed to merge together at the corner, but they separated in the blink of an eye. They were incomparably harmonious and synchronized, but they were never able to stick together. Luo Nan leaned against the back of the chair and stared blankly at the reflections of the two dragons of light. One is Grandpa. The other is me, what? Mrs. Luo Shuqing, who was sitting in the back seat, was extremely sensitive to Luo Nan's soliloquy. In fact, Luo Nan hadn't spoken a single word ever since he got on the car. He maintained a long period of silence. This made her raise her vigilance. Luo Nan turned his head and saw that his aunt was clearly very nervous, but she was doing her best to maintain a calm posture. He thought for a bit and spoke in a low voice, "Aunt. Give me a precise answer." "Grandpa. How much longer?" Luo Shuqing's face was instantly filled with astonishment. Then she used an even more obvious frown to conceal it. Her voice was deliberately suppressed to be deep. "What are you letting your imagination run wild?" Luo Nan took a deep breath. 2 years? I told you not to let your imagination run wild. 1 year? Luo Nan. Luo Shuqing suddenly raised her voice, causing Mo Peng's body to go rigid to the side. His uncle never turned his head. It was as if he hadn't heard a thing. He was acting as a driver for show. Luo Nan let out a long breath, stabilizing the surging emotions in his heart. He also did his best to steady his voice. "Grandpa has feelings for my painting. What are you talking about?" Luo Shuqing felt that Luo Nan's train of thought was very strange. Luo Nan lowered his head and opened the notebook. He flipped to the page of the prison building and showed it to his aunt. "Grandpa had feelings for this painting this morning. Isn't that right, Brother Peng?" Mo Peng's entire body felt uncomfortable when he heard Luo Nan take the initiative to call him brother. This was a fucking threat, but he still nodded. Of course, he had to keep his words like, "It was this painting that made the old man go crazy," to his stomach. Luo Shuqing took the notebook and looked at the chaotic lines that had other meanings. Her eyebrows furrowed even tighter. She closed the notebook. She didn't want to look too much, so as to avoid being disturbed in her train of thought. "Just say it. What do you mean in the end?" "I want to draw a painting. I want Grandpa to see it. I want to draw a painting that will make him truly happy. Make him happy. This isn't easy. I need time, but I just don't know how much time I have." Luo Nan turned his chair to sit face to face with Luo Shuqing. Their gazes met. "I need to draw up a schedule for my plan. So I hope Aunt can give me accurate information to use as a reference. With the identity of Luo Yuandao's eldest son and grandson, is that okay?" Chapter 93. Luo Nan knew that his aunt seemed strong, but she was actually a very traditional woman. She taught her children strictly and her thinking was relatively conservative. She often followed the will of the male in the family when it came to matters of principle. Luo Nan was the only seedling of the Luo family. His aunt was absolutely unable to refuse him just because of this. Luo Nan got what he wanted 2 minutes later. He didn't know what to say to his aunt at this time, so he could only turn his seat back. The car sank into silence once more. Luo Nan used the flexible e-ink screen to flip through his grandfather's diagnosis. The diagnosis did not have a clear time limit, but the truth was hidden between the lines. Luo Yuandao had multiple organ failure due to the many complications caused by the pathological changes to his nervous system. He was already in an extremely dangerous stage. In fact, he was completely relying on medicine and equipment to support himself. From the doctor's perspective, it was already a miracle that this old man could walk, talk, and lose his temper. But the strong stimulation of medicine would eventually be unable to resist the exhaustion of the essence of life. No one knew when this balance would tilt. Perhaps the old man's tolerance to a certain medicine would increase by a bit, and this balance would be broken. Then everything would be irreparable. If everything was simplified, it could be summed up in 2 words, at any time. Unexpectedly, Luo Nan wasn't that surprised. It was as if this was how things should be. The Hexier sent another message. It was still Octopus. Octopus sent over his study notes from back in the day. The notes were all the key information he recorded when he participated in the Society's elementary research classes. There was a set of fundamental theories that tempered the mind and the fleshly body. They were very classical and practical. Octopus sent them over naturally meant to point Luo Nan in the right direction. Luo Nan skimmed 10 lines at a glance. He roughly flipped through the notes and stored them in the Hexier's personal folder. He wasn't going to look at them in detail. His body leaned back against the back of the chair. His gaze once again looked at the parallel light dragons outside the window. Although the light dragons had the same trajectory, they would never converge. This was inevitable according to the rational rules of the normal world. It was just like how his grandfather, a schizophrenic, couldn't truly understand him when he drew a picture with the thinking of a normal person. Luo Nan spent a lot of time trying to use normal people's logic to interpret his grandfather's theories over the past 5 years. He explained it to normal people and even convinced them. But now he understood, his grandfather's logic completely broke away from the dimensions of normal people. What did the honor and justice of the world have to do with him? What his grandfather needed, or at least what Luo Nan believed he needed, was a clear, straightforward, and correct communication. That was the beginning of everything. The first was logic. Luo Yuandao's logic was classical. His formatting theory was a form similar to primitive philosophy. He advocated the nesting of self-format, social format, and heaven and earth format. This kind of nesting was not from the outside to the inside, from the material to the spirit, it was from the inside to the outside, from the self to the entire universe. Apart from the founder, few people would like this theory. Because it pushed all existences other than me into the whirlpool created by me and turned them into my slaves. Even Luo Nan, who listened and obeyed his grandfather's every word regarding the self-format, interpreted the societal format as a 5-level structure of student, employee, technician, clergyman, and politician. Intentionally or unintentionally, Luo Nan understood these 5 levels of structure as relatively objective existences. The social format was viewed as a set of undiscovered formulas, an undefined model, and the collective creation of a certain human society. This was essentially no different from most of the sociological theories on the market. In fact, it was even worse. It was just as Mo Peng, who excelled in all 7 subjects, had said, where was the standard? Luo Nan heard a clear and insane answer to this question from his grandfather's roar, mine. All of it is mine. My student, my employee, my technician, my clergyman, my politician. Selfish and arrogant to the point of making one nauseous. Extreme to the point of making one tremble. But Luo Nan was able to find a complete and clear thread of logic from within when he eliminated these unnecessary emotions. Luo Nan flipped through the notebook, flipping to the page on the prison building. He flipped to the page on which the wraith sign was derived. These were the 2 psychic diagrams he had left on the paper. Then he flipped back. He opened the flexible e-ink screen and entered the interface of the drawing software. There should be one more here. He had drawn the 3rd psychic diagram on the night of the 28th, which was like a muddy river. However, there was no one inside. Instead, he long pressed to open the 2nd interface of the software. It really was like a muddy river had flowed through here. Then could he understand it this way? The psychic diagram had already been added in this way? The psychic diagram was personally drawn by Luo Nan. Naturally, he knew what it symbolized. The muddy river water was the muddy flow of emotions held by the human-faced arachnid. It was formed from the convergence of the corresponding emotions of countless humans. Practically no one was able to escape from this dusky muddy water. And within this muddy flow, the human-faced arachnid carried out its hunt. Luo Nan stared at the 5-story tower structure. The sketches of human figures were densely packed inside. Admittedly, they were arranged neatly like playing cards, but they were inexplicably an eyesore. He subconsciously trembled for a bit, as if he was going through a sieve. In an instant, the muddy flow of the interface became even more chaotic. It was as if an invisible giant hand was stirring. More importantly, the several hundred playing cards didn't follow the previous interface function of shuffling. Instead, they were scattered in all directions. The thousands of human figures on them were like drowning passengers on a capsized ship. They poured out from the 5-story tower structure, struggling, drifting, and twisting within the muddy flow. Luo Nan calmly looked at all of this and came to a conclusion: everyone is struggling within the muddy flow of emotions. Simple depictions and replications are of no significance to the society's format. I believe that classifying and placing them is useless. What is truly meaningful? His gaze cast onto the 5-story tower structure of the interface's main body. It was already completely empty inside. No, there were exceptions. There were 2 people on the lowest student level. Luo Nan had quite a deep memory of one of them. It was a gift that he had drawn not even 2 days ago. A certain man was waving his arm with one hand and his other hand was wrapped around someone's shoulder. He seemed deranged, yet he seemed unafraid. It was Xie Junping in an explosive state. The other one was a fish. It looked very lively as it spiraled and swam in the muddy water. In fact, it never crossed the boundaries of the student level. Luo Nan stared at the outline of this fish that seemed to have been casually drawn. He used his finger to gesture a few more times and confirmed its origin. Within the 3rd psychic diagram, it was one of the many ability users who used the fish-style depiction. Its corresponding target was cat eyes. That was not all. Looking up from the student level and across the empty staff level, there was a strange symbol floating in the technician level. Chapter 94. Luo Nan sat quietly. He stared at the mostly empty 5-level pyramid and continued to deduce his conclusions. The same pyramid can contain vastly different contents. This is probably because the standards are completely different. The previous stratification was just a simple reconstruction of the structure of society. Therefore, everyone could be placed within it. But this kind of structure did not have a clear and precise location for each individual. It was like a pile of spare parts. No matter how large or complete they were, they could not be assembled into a complete functional machine. It was meaningless. The current stratification standard is simple and crude. Does it belong to me? Under this simple logic, all existences unrelated to me will be cleared out. As for what counts as related, obviously, it has to be directly related to the self-format. Only then will it be included in this system. The software interface continued to undergo changes as his logical thinking advanced layer by layer. The heavily chained crow was like a giant python shuttling back and forth within the 5-level pyramid structure. But no matter how it moved, it always maintained a connection with Xie Junping, cat eyes, and the wraith sign. The heavily chained crow was the symbol of, my heart's a prison. It was the materialization of the self-format. Luo Nan had once used the heavily chained crow to destroy the human-faced arachnid's clone for Xie Junping. Cat eyes had once collided with Luo Nan's psychic diagram and was countered by the heavily chained crow. As for the wraith sign, it had always been under the control of the heavily chained crow. These scenes flashed through Luo Nan's mind one by one. They became footnotes for his inferences. Of course, there were differences between the 3. This difference was reflected in the division of levels. Xie Junping and cat eyes were on the student level. According to formatting theory, they did not make any contributions to the social format. They were learners who received one-way indoctrination. Though Xie Junping had stood up for Luo Nan and cat eyes had released her deep memories of Luo Nan, that was a change in orientation after entering the formatting system. Luo Nan was completely unable to obtain any direct benefits from the bodies of these 2 people. And if major stimuli were to appear, they would likely refuse Luo Nan's indoctrination. They would walk out of the format pyramid and part ways with Luo Nan. As for the wraith sign, it was completely like Luo Nan's dog. It would bite whoever it was told to bite. Speaking of which, its loyalty was off the charts. It also possessed extremely powerful abilities. More importantly, Luo Nan was able to obtain direct benefits from its body. The benefits he obtained were even higher than the benefits he could obtain from purely relying on the training of his body. The results of devouring the human-faced arachnid's avatar had already proven this point. Therefore, the wraith sign entered the technician level. But the problem was that it didn't have any self-awareness, so it couldn't rise to the level of self-awareness. This level was already its limit. Luo Nan suddenly felt an inexplicable sense of familiarity as his thoughts reached this point. He felt as if he had seen such a clear hierarchy, gradually deepening connection, and feedback pattern somewhere before. He searched through his memories, and the relevant scenes were fixed in his grandfather's ferocious roar. Luo Nan pressed his forehead. His fingertips moved, and a certain word suddenly smashed into his brain. It was hard to get rid of it. Temple, God nation, new God, old God. God, God? In Grandpa's crazy talk, the word God appeared very frequently and occupied a very central position. In the past, Luo Nan would not have cared. But now that his horizons had been broadened, it was hard for his thoughts to remain pure. He closed his eyes. In reality, he connected to the psychic wave network through the hexaear and entered the interface of the professional association. Then he searched for the secret order's entry, focusing on finding information related to their organizational structure. Soon, a large amount of information poured out. It seemed that the psychic wave network of the society wasn't designed to be too powerful in terms of intelligent filtering. Luo Nan could only search and comb through the information with great difficulty. This lasted until there was a paragraph that attracted his attention. The vast majority of the founders of secret orders were unavoidably influenced by the existing culture of society. They often used ancient myths, mainstream religions, and historical legends as references when they first established the basic structure of their sections. They even used novels and games as models. They painted their sects with all sorts of fantastical colors and designed strict ranks. The specific concepts are vastly different. When examining the secret orders that have existed for over 10 years, one must admit that they have, to a large extent, a convergence that makes one raise an eyebrow has appeared. Especially in terms of organizational structure. The three great world secret orders seem to coincidentally divide their internal personnel into 4 ranks. Although the names are all different, the meanings within are very similar. I have unified them as shallow believer, devout believer, fanatic believer, and favored. As the names imply, the believers of these 4 ranks have different degrees of devotion and devotion toward the God. And the gifts and rewards they receive from the God are different as well. Facts can prove that the God and the first oblatum are true to the various ranks of believers. The offerings, demands, and feedback they receive from the God are real and not false. There is a strict hierarchy of judgment. They possess a similar but strict and feasible logic, forming a system that is still stable to this day. Luo Nan felt that this article was very much to his liking after reading halfway. It just so happened to answer his question, so he paid special attention to the author's name. He didn't expect the author to be quite familiar. Bamboo Pole, if it wasn't the same name, then this person was the skinny and tall person who was in charge of intelligence work during the operation on the night of the 28th. Luo Nan remembered that this person always had a cheeky smile on his face, but his words were very sharp. Luo Nan's impression deepened and he matched this person's description with his own situation. Now he finally understood where the sense of familiarity came from. The 4 levels of the secret order structure. Of course, it was possible that this was a definition borrowed from a certain novel or a certain game. It seemed to be completely comparable to the format pyramid. Although the format pyramid had 5 levels, the highest level, politician, had a rather special definition. It represented the subversion and denial of the entire format. It could be ignored for the time being. The next 4 levels were quite reliable. If he looked at it this way, then his grandfather's formatting theory, or at least the level of the social format, was also a kind of ability explanation system. And it leaned towards the standpoint of the secret order? Then what was the current him? Was he some malnourished god? Luo Nan rubbed his forehead even harder. Tired? We're almost home. His uncle suddenly spoke. Luo Nan went, He jumped out of his thinking mode. It seemed that his attitude just now had made his uncle and aunt even more worried. He thought for a bit and pursed his lips in a feigned relaxed manner. I'm not tired. I'm just a bit hungry. His uncle grunted and turned to speak to his aunt. It's late to go home and cook. Should we let old Mo make a nutritious meal? or should we deal with it outside? Mo Peng cried out in fright, heavens! Don't trouble him. Chapter 95. Old Mo was the family's AI housekeeper. Since he had carelessly chosen to lean towards environmental protection, this AI's cooking menu forever lacked high-fat and high-protein options. Moreover, the nutritious meals he made were more like medicine than food. Old Mo's uncle and aunt weren't averse to this. They didn't mind occasionally slacking off and tasting fresh food. But for Mo Peng, he would rather drink plain water. Luo Nan also felt that it would be best for him, who had consumed large amounts of mental power, to strengthen his nutritional supplements. Seeing the troubled expressions of the two youngsters, Luo Nan's uncle readily agreed, then we'll settle it outside. There's a new restaurant nearby that's pretty good. As he spoke, he used the car's AI to order food online. His luck wasn't bad. Even though he had already entered the bustling Xia City district and it was mealtime, he still successfully placed the order. The SUV cut into another lane and entered the light track of a certain skyscraper. It began to gradually rise to the traffic level. Xia City had 20 transportation layers from the ground to the sky. Aside from the 5 layers that were used by specialized flying machines, the remaining 15 transportation layers mostly used the light rails that bypassed the various high-rise buildings in the city to realize the switching and distribution of the layers. Every night, the outer layers of many skyscrapers would light up like spiraling neon lights. Tens of thousands of flying cars would shuttle back and forth, forming a seemingly never-ending stream of light. It was filled with the beauty of order. Luo Nan continued to read the rest of Bamboo Pole's words, and the word order was mentioned. We've observed the secret orders. The vast majority of them, from top to bottom, show signs of irrationality. But within and between every order, a high degree of unity and order is ultimately manifested. It makes one suspect that all irrational things are stuffed into a hard, firm, and tight framework. Or perhaps it's a kind of magical machine. Irrational raw materials are filled in, and the product is order. I can't find any other explanation for this besides a complete ability explanation system. We can match the secret order's ability explanation system with the society's internal ability explanation system. Shallow believers correspond to unawakened ability users. Devout believers correspond to awakened ones. Fanatics correspond to engineers. Favored correspond to extraordinaries. Basically, the ability levels are quite compatible. Is this the ability explanation system's different routes lead to the same goal? If this is the case, the society will be very happy to sit down with the secret order and eat breakfast together. But in reality, the church's explanation system still had serious differences with that of the association. The society, the church, and even the burners. What does the coexistence of 2 or even more systems mean? Have we only seen one side of the truth, or is the world like a sandwich? Or simply a 1,000-layer cake? There's another layer to unravel, it's just a matter of how you want to eat it. Bamboo Pole's article was very long. Luo Nan only read the gist of it. However, the main point was still very clear. It was to discuss the opposing system between the association and the secret orders, and to correct some people's belittling of the secret orders. However, Luo Nan's feelings had deviated a bit from Bamboo Pole's goal of writing this article. I seem to have entered the wrong door. Luo Nan felt a small sense of absurdity. No matter how he looked at it now, his own formatting theory leaned more towards the direction of the secret orders. Like Xie Junping and Cat Eyes, weren't they shallow believers? Another example would be the Wraith Sign, who was a fanatic. The standard of the societal format was more like the typical structure of the secret orders, with God as the center. If the facts proved that his self-logic and the ability explanation system advocated by the society had a serious deviation, then what was the point of him joining the society? Of course, Luo Nan wanted to know why his grandfather's theory would form such a close correspondence with the secret order system. Was it a coincidence? Or was it some other reason? Luo Nan's doubts were destined not to be answered in a short amount of time. The family had already arrived at the restaurant. They were guided by the waiter to their reserved seats and sat down. The restaurant's environment was pretty good. It had antique wooden window partitions, allowing light to pass through and emphasizing privacy. Even though there were quite a few people eating, it was relatively quiet. Luo Shuqing was quite satisfied. The place you chose is pretty good. This kind of environment was a bit old-fashioned for youngsters. Mo Peng wasn't interested in the surrounding decorations. He lowered his head and played his game after ordering. Luo Nan went to the bathroom. His train of thought had hit a bottleneck. It was hard not to be preoccupied. He kept his head down the entire way, ignoring the things around him. But when he was washing his hands, someone beside him called out in a probing manner, "Mr. Luo?" Luo Nan was startled. He raised his head and saw that the person was around 40 years old. His figure was tall and sturdy, and he looked capable and calm. Luo Nan just felt that the person looked familiar. He thought about how he was addressed, and only then did he remember that the only people who could call him by this name were those who participated in the operation on the 28th. Yes, this person was one of the 4 bodyguards He Yueyin had brought with her that day. He was responsible for looking after Shuelei, Black Wolf, and the other injured people. He was a very steady person. However, Luo Nan couldn't remember his name no matter how hard he tried. He couldn't help feeling a bit embarrassed. This bodyguard was experienced in the ways of the world. He smiled and extended his hand to introduce himself, "Zhou Hu. I didn't greet Mr. Luo that day. My apologies." Luo Nan hurriedly called out, "Brother Zhou." He was a bit baffled. "Brother Zhou is here? Is Sister He here as well?" "Nope. I'm off today. I'm here for a private gathering. A group of old comrades." "Oh right. Crag Burst is here as well." "Huh." Luo Nan's impression of Crag Burst, who was also in the society, was much deeper. Crag Burst was a valiant close combat expert. He existed as Luo Nan's protector during the later stages of the operation. Even though Crag Burst didn't have the opportunity to truly display his strength, the 2-meter-tall giant gave Luo Nan a sense of security. Luo Nan even added Crag Burst as a friend through the Hexier. "You guys are comrades? We've tested each other before. We don't have a deep friendship. But we're familiar now." Zhou Hu laughed as he invited, "Mr. Luo, do you want to come over to our place?" "Forget it. Send my regards to Crag Burst." Luo Nan wasn't good at this sort of social interaction. He was just about to leave when he turned his head to see Mo Peng's short and stout figure make his way in. Mo Peng was stunned for a moment when he saw Luo Nan chatting with a tall and sturdy man with a clear age gap. But he didn't really take it to heart. He greeted Luo Nan and went to release. Luo Nan found it inappropriate to leave first. He smiled at Zhou Hu, my older cousin. Zhou Hu understood and took his leave first. Mo Peng came to the sink just as Luo Nan left. He grimaced in pain. "Did you just run into an acquaintance?" "Dad ran into one too. This place is evil." Another person walked in before Luo Nan could finish speaking. Luo Nan's back was facing the door right now. The person just happened to see Luo Nan's back as well as the side of his face reflected in the mirror. The person suddenly trembled and turned to leave. Chapter 96. As the voice fell, the person who had just entered hurriedly barged in again. He lowered his head and quickly entered the room. It looked like he really couldn't hold it in any longer. Mo Peng was baffled, but he also chuckled. Luo Nan could vaguely feel that this person's strange attitude was due to him. He swept a glance at the person's face and saw that this person was very young. He wore vintage gold-rimmed glasses. At first glance, he looked a bit like Octopus Bro. However, his hair was combed and shiny. His skin was tender and tender. He was a bit feminine. He looked familiar, but Luo Nan didn't recognize him for a moment. Luo Nan couldn't block this person at the urinal and interrogate him about this sort of thing. Luo Nan only kept his guard up as he walked out with Mo Peng. He casually picked up the topic from before. "Where did this acquaintance come from?" "From work. He looks like a rich man." He brought a bodyguard and a lawyer. It looks like he's here to discuss business. He looks quite young. Mo Peng only remembered this much. The two strolled leisurely in the hallway. Then the sound of footsteps came from behind them. The young man who had gone to the wrong door just now walked in this direction after coming out of the restroom. However, he turned into a private room halfway. The distance was just right. Luo Nan released his mental senses to look at the situation inside. He sized up the faces of the people in the room when he heard a sentence, "This place is evil. Whoever comes, that's who." Who? The one we just talked about. He nearly choked Li Shueching to death. He even joined the Order Club. F***ck me. That psychopath. Luo Nan couldn't help but touch his face. Luo Nan's advance had already exceeded the range of his senses after hearing this sentence. However, he didn't need to listen to the following words. He finally remembered that the glasses guy was one of Xie Junping's bad friends. He seemed to be called Lu Tao. Luo Nan's initial understanding of the Darksider life form came from this person. There were 2 or 3 familiar faces among the people in the private room. He should have met them on the warship. They were probably a small circle of rich kids. Luo Nan just didn't expect that he would have a bit of fame in that circle. Even though it didn't sound good. Luo Nan no longer paid attention to this group of people. He and Mo Peng entered the hall together. The conversation within the private room continued to progress. It wouldn't be wrong to say that this was the circle of the rich second generation, but it would be more accurate to say that it was the majority of the members of the Construction Society's executive committee, except for Li Shueching, who was still lying in the hospital. Originally, they were going to have a meal with the person in charge of the Rainbow Fund, the co-investor, but the other party still hadn't arrived. The group of people hadn't had a meal for a long time, and they were all stifled. They could only rely on bragging and gossiping to survive. The relationship between this kid and Xie Junping is unclear. I heard that the next morning, Li Shueching called Shattered Soul and his gang to beat him up. In the end, not only did they not succeed, they were even beaten up by Xie Junping and sent to the hospital. This can't be right. Why did I hear that it's related to Lien Jiu? Have you seen Xie Junping hanging out with Lien Fu these past 2 days? It seems to have collapsed. At this moment, Lang Ding stood up from the main seat. I've just contacted him. He's outside. I'll go out and welcome him. Lu Tao Gang started a new topic. Although he was happy with it, he couldn't help but feel a little displeased. This person sure is arrogant. At this point, we don't even know his name or his appearance. I just need to know the Rainbow Fund's official seal and procedures. Lang Ding chuckled. He called a few people out and walked towards the main hall. Luo Nan and Mo Peng had already entered the main hall at this time. They could see from afar that the table they had reserved for 4 people at this time was actually full. There was even a person standing outside a small booth. Mo Peng rolled his eyes when he saw this. You haven't finished chatting yet. Don't tell me you want to eat at the same table? Luo Nan walked a bit closer. He wasn't obstructed by the antique wooden window, so he just happened to be able to see the appearance of the person outside the booth. His feet suddenly stopped. The person standing had a swift and fierce build. His skin was dark and shiny. His gaze swept all around with ice-cold vigilance. He had the appearance of a bodyguard. The dark-skinned bodyguard clearly sensed Luo Nan's gaze at the same time that Luo Nan's gaze swept over. His cold gaze was cast over. It was the dark-skinned man that Luo Nan had seen at Gear. The burner. Luo Nan's brows furrowed slightly. His footsteps paused for a bit, then he sped up and walked straight over. He saw that aside from his aunt and uncle, there were 2 other people sitting. One was Lawyer Zhu, whom he had seen that day. The other was a man who looked to be around 30 years old. His face was handsome and he seemed to be smiling. But from the contours of his face, he should have maintained a serious appearance all year round. His smile appeared stiff, distorted, and a bit inexplicable coldness. But the thing that gave Luo Nan the deepest impression was the area around this person's eye sockets. The color of blood and tendons interweaved together to form a strange contrast with his current smile. Oh right, this person's eyes were a dark red color. Luo Nan got closer and further confirmed that the atmosphere in the booth was absolutely abnormal. His uncle's expression was tranquil. His aunt's expression was as deep as water. Neither of them said a word. There wasn't a hint of harmony between old friends. The red-eyed man didn't say a word either. Lawyer Zhu's elite tone came out from the booth. I am unable to explain too much for the time being regarding Mr. Yan's impromptu intention to transfer. However, from my professional perspective, there is a very high degree of maneuverability involved. Luo Nan and Mo Peng had already walked out of the booth at this time. The dark-faced bodyguard's gaze was fixed on Luo Nan's face from beginning to end. Luo Nan didn't do anything when faced with such a direct and cold gaze, but Mo Peng already found it a bit hard to endure. I say, there's something wrong with this atmosphere. The red-eyed man saw them return at this time and waved his hand, indicating for Lawyer Zhu to pause. His gaze turned and directly cut to Luo Nan's face. He paused for a moment and actually took the initiative to stand up, grinning. This was an even stranger smile. The center of his lips was quite wide open, but the corners of his lips were purposefully tightened, affecting the muscles of his cheeks. Not only did his eyes not narrow because of his smile, they actually widened a bit. The dark red region at the corner of his eyes slightly twitched. That bizarre distortion was indescribable. This must be Luo Nan. I remember the last time I saw you. You just came out of your mother's womb. You weren't even the size of a palm. You just rolled up and down like that, Yan Yonghua. Mrs. Luo Shuqing slammed the table with a bang. Her voice was unprecedentedly furious and shrill. The entire restaurant went silent. The customers in the surrounding area and even further away all turned their heads to look. The waiters hurried over, wanting to understand the situation. And this attracted the attention of Lang Ding and the others, who had just arrived at the hall and were looking all around. They didn't see anything else, but they first saw the dark-faced bodyguard who was like a door god. Hey, over there. A group of people walked over with curiosity. Lang Ding was the first to see the situation inside the booth. His gaze swept past Luo Nan and the others before finally stopping on the face of the red-eyed man. His expression changed in an instant and he cried out involuntarily, Teacher. Teacher Yan? Some of the members of the construction society who followed behind him were at a loss. Some were stupefied. But the ones who recognized the face before their eyes all thought to themselves, this sponsor. What a deep scheme. Chapter 97. I've been busy lately, so the update time is a bit messy. Please forgive me. No matter what, it had to be guaranteed that he would be able to eat twice a day. After this week, the rhythm would adjust. This chapter is the second update on the 17th. The vast majority of the Construction Society's executive committee members had stayed at Acumen College for over 10 years. 6 years ago, Yan Hong's academic scandal had shaken the entire world. There was no reason for them to forget it. What's more, wasn't the theme they were currently revolving around gear? In that academic scandal, that accident in Gear's underground laboratory was the scene that caused the world to be in an uproar. Yan Hong, facing the criticism of the entire world, deliberately created an accident, destroyed evidence, and used the crudest method to cover up his crimes. This also caused Acumen College, who was responsible for the administration, to lose face. After the incident, Yan Hong, who was condemned by everyone, disappeared without a trace. Yan Yonghua, who was a lecturer in the academy, also disappeared. Most people felt that they would never see them again. But reality slapped him hard in the face. It really is Yan Yonghua. He used to give me lessons. Lu Tao recognized Yan Yonghua and couldn't help but poke his companion beside him. Hey, he's the person in charge of the Rainbow Fund? That's a credit limit of tens of billions. And it seems that Quantum Corporation is behind it. Is Yan Hong coming back for revenge? His companion shook his head. He did not and could not answer this question. Yan Yongbo's demonic crimson eyes swept across the faces of Lang Ding and the others. He nodded slightly as a greeting. Then, he turned his gaze to Luo Shuqing, who was glaring at him, and bowed. Ms. Luo, I'm sorry. My words were inappropriate. Actually, I have always admired and respected senior sister Qingwen. Therefore, when I returned this time, the first thing I did was to purchase gear. This was senior Qingwen's undying work back then. Back then, I also hoped to restore the glory of my father's laboratory. Luo Shuqing didn't hide her emotions at all. In your dreams. Yan Yongbo calmly tapped his temple. Now, I have the ability to turn dreams into reality. Oh, I'm sorry, I forgot that you haven't eaten yet. I won't disturb you for now. We'll talk about the transfer later. He walked straight out of the cubicle, and Lawyer Zhu hurriedly got up to follow. Luo Nan stared coldly at this strange man outside the compartment. He didn't know who Yan Yongbo was at first, but now he was clear, it was this person. Yan Heng's son. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to describe him as a mortal enemy. No matter which side it was, they had no intention of resolving the enmity. Yan Yongbo walked to Luo Nan's side. Just as he was about to brush shoulders with Luo Nan, Yan Yongbo suddenly turned his head. He used a twisted smile to meet Luo Nan's clear and cold eyes. Speaking of which, my father and Mr. Luo Yuandao have worked together for many years. I was also Mr. Luo Yuandao's student and research assistant for a period of time. Senior Zhongheng, Senior Qingwen, and I are fellow alumni of Acumen College. If there is a chance to coexist, I hope to continue the fate of our two families at Gear. Luo Nan was disinclined to respond to such meaningless words. But in the next moment, Yan Yongbo suddenly turned around without any warning. He raised his hand and embraced Luo Nan's shoulder. It looked intimate, but Yan Yongbo bent his waist slightly. His unyielding strength forced Luo Nan to bend over. His mouth was right next to Luo Nan's ear as he laughed in a low voice. I was exaggerating a bit just now. You weren't that small when you were wrapped up in the womb. At worst, you were like a chihuahua rolling around in the solution. You were actually quite cute. Yan Yongbo felt Luo Nan's body go rigid in an instant. He patted Luo Nan's shoulder. It's just a pity for Senior Qingwen. I've been fantasizing about her since junior high. But from then on, I never did it again. Do you know why? Luo Nan turned his face slightly. His gaze was penetratingly cold and hard, but it was unable to affect Yan Yongbo's twisted smiling face in the slightest. It's too easy for me to make associations. When her face flashes in my mind, I think of that pile of rotting flesh and bones. In this instant, a certain string in Luo Nan's mind snapped. The heavily chained crow was about to pierce out of his body amidst the rattling vibrations, piercing through the head of the man before him. But a scorching firepower was transmitted from Yan Yongbo's body in advance. It penetrated through Luo Nan's neck, just like a red-hot blade. The instant brush with death caused Luo Nan's thoughts to stagnate. The heavily chained crow didn't come out, but Yan Yongbo's words pressed into his eardrums one word at a time. Look. This is the archetype format. This is the burner. This is the true result. And your kind is worthless. I didn't have the time to say those words to your dead old man back then. I'll give them to you. Yan Yongbo let go of Luo Nan's shoulder and laughed loudly just like that. He directly left, and the dark-faced bodyguard followed closely behind. Lawyer Zhu also hurriedly followed. Lang Ding and the other members of the construction society looked at each other in dismay. They hesitated for a while, but they still chased after Yan Yongbo. Yan Yongbo seemed to have gone mad. He laughed all the time. His laughter was hoarse and sharp, echoing throughout the entire dining hall. Nan Nan. Luo Shuqing, who had just been intimidated by the inexplicable power, finally broke free. She flipped over the chair and threw herself over. She hugged Luo Nan, who was still in a bent posture, and spoke incoherently. Are you okay? What did he say? That bastard. Are you okay? What did he say? Luo Nan didn't say anything. Up ahead, Yan Yongbo walked very quickly, pulling open the distance between him and the group of people from the construction society. Finally, his laughter stopped, and his face quickly returned to its usual cold and solemn state. Lawyer Zhu. Lawyer Zhu had to jog the entire way in order to keep up. It was inevitable that his elite style of calmness was a bit scattered. But he had no choice but to run. He had been scared stiff by Yan Yongbo's previous performance. He had never thought that this big financial backer of his, who had always maintained a calm appearance, would actually have such a crazed core. He gasped for breath and asked, "Mr. Yen, do you have any instructions? How is the school?" The sudden change in topic and situation caused Lawyer Zhu to stare blankly. Luckily, this was his field of expertise, so he quickly replied, "They basically agreed to speed up the process. If the bidding goes smoothly, why doesn't it go smoothly? Huh? Under the unreserved support of the Rainbow Fund. Come, Lawyer Zhu. Tell me where it doesn't go smoothly." Lawyer Zhu felt his legs go a bit soft. He unconsciously swallowed a mouthful of saliva and rushed to remedy the situation. After the bidding succeeds, the relevant procedures will be completed within half a month. Are there any other obstructions? Right now he's mainly in the society. That one just now. I'm talking about Luo Nan. Lawyer Zhu glanced at Yan Yongbo's face from the corner of his eyes as he spoke. Seeing that Yan Yongbo didn't have any special reaction, Lawyer Zhu continued to speak. Luo Nan is a member of the society. He doesn't have the right to make decisions, but he does have the right to request for reconsideration. In other words, he can go through questioning a certain part of the procedure to drag things out for a period of time. Of course, this doesn't affect the overall situation. We can advance forward together. Oh. Yan Yongbo suddenly turned around and grabbed his collar in a rude manner. He stared at him and said, "Lawyer Zhu, do you know what the big picture is?" Lawyer Zhu was scared silly and shook his head vigorously. "Do you know how many earthquakes have occurred in Xia City over the past 10 days? He continued to shake his head. "It's been 15 times. If you don't even know this, how can you talk about the big picture?" Lawyer Zhu had already been thoroughly confused by Yan Yongbo's logic. Fortunately, Yan Yongbo released his grip and sighed. "Sorry, I'm a little excited. Help me think, what should I do now? Right now, my mind is filled with kill, kill, kill. Isn't this not too good?" Chapter 98. I came back too late today. The second chapter will be finished in the wee hours of the morning. I might as well put it on tomorrow morning. Everyone doesn't have to stay up to wait. It's equivalent to tomorrow's third chapter. Also, there was an error in the chapter numbering. It has been corrected. Because of their pause, Lang Ding and the others also caught up. Yan Yongbo didn't pay them any attention, only using a very serious expression to stare at Lawyer Zhu, hoping to get an answer. Lawyer Zhu's legs were really weak. His heart was already bursting with regret and fear. Now, he was more certain than ever that Yan Yongbo wasn't a normal person from the very core. Yan Yongbo wasn't normal, but Lawyer Zhu believed himself to be very normal. How could he possibly speak of this kind of kill matter in front of others? He just wanted to block Yan Yongbo's mouth and stop him from spitting out those murderous words. For this, he desperately squeezed his brain tissue and tried hard to form words. "Mr. Yan, perhaps we can use another method. If we want to circumvent his right to review, the best way is to terminate his membership in the club." "Yes, I know this is impossible, but there is an alternative." "Yes, there is another way." Under pressure, people's potential was indeed limitless. Lawyer Zhu's brain really did jump out with a brand new train of thought. "Yes, we can make him withdraw. We just need to prove that Luo Nan has some kind of direct interest relationship with this auction. Then we just need to hold a hearing and I can shut him up forever." At this time, Lang Ding and the others had already formed a circle, blocking most of the corridor. He wanted to greet him, but Yan Yonghua didn't even bother to look him in the eye. Instead, he was quite interested in Lawyer Zhu's words. Benefits? For example, we can question whether or not Luo Nan had a secret agreement with the Mystic Arts Research Society beforehand. After all, the timing of his entry into the society is too coincidental. We can completely make an issue out of this. Yan Yonghua nodded slightly. Very good, but how do we prove it? No, Mr. Yan, I'm just making an analogy. Lawyer Zhu finally regained his confidence in his professional field. His voice became a bit louder. We can completely adopt a more proactive method. In fact, I think that the transfer intention that you mentioned just now is a very good entry point. I don't really understand the situation inside. It seems to be related to some patents. Yan Yonghua's expression did not change. He nodded slightly. More or less. Luo Nan is the direct descendant of the victim? The legal heir? That's right, that's his grandfather. Then, if you don't mind, you can use your private identity to fight a lawsuit with them. As long as the court accepts it, a beneficial relationship will appear between you and Luo Nan. And as the person in charge of the Rainbow Fund, you are a key figure in this bidding. Then, all of Luo Nan's questioning of Gear's bidding process can be viewed as selfish actions. I think that with this reason, the school will make a very sensible decision. No matter how much he objects, it will be useless. Hearing this, Yan Yonghua stroked his chin lightly. Is that so? Filled with anger, yet powerless to do anything. This is good. Does this count as a pass? Lawyer Zhu secretly heaved a sigh of relief. Lang Ding and the others finally got the chance to say hello. They were actually very embarrassed. He inexplicably listened to a string of schemes aimed at Luo Nan, but the other side really didn't try to avoid it at all. After all, this was a public place. Many people in the restaurant were looking over because of the previous incident. There were also people going in and out of the private rooms along the corridor, casting curious glances at them. Not too far away, there was a big guy who was nearly 2 meters tall. His face was flushed from being drunk. He leaned against the wall and looked over in a daze. He probably guessed that with his size, he would bump into him if he walked over. But Yan Yonghua really didn't care. He was very calm right now. I'm very sorry for what happened just now. It involved some personal grudges. I lost my composure a bit and made everyone laugh. Right now, not even a hint of craziness could be seen from Yan Yonghua's body. But the more he was like this, the more people felt that he was strange and unfathomable. In the end, it was Lang Ding who suggested, let's go inside and talk. We need to drink a few cups in a bit to welcome Teacher Yan. No matter what they thought in their hearts, everyone nodded in agreement. The group of people immediately surrounded Yan Yonghua and entered the private room. The atmosphere seemed to be quite enthusiastic. In comparison, Luo Nan's family, who were still in the lobby, were in a more difficult time. This was because of what had happened before and Luo Shuqing's nearly uncontrollable emotions. Many people raised their eyebrows. The lobby manager also came over to ask if they needed any help. He probably felt that Luo Nan's family was in a weak position in the conflict just now. Luo Shuqing was just about to call the police, but her husband stopped her. She suppressed her uncontrollable emotions with great difficulty. Luo Shuqing felt that she shouldn't say anything right now. She should immediately go home. No, she should go to the hospital. Luo Nan's current state was far too worrying. His head was lowered from beginning to end, not saying a single word. Based on Luo Shuqing's understanding of children, she felt that Luo Nan's entire being was in an extremely gloomy state. His emotions were suppressed, and it seemed that he would explode at any moment. What she was most worried about was, would this sort of stimulation affect Luo Nan's mind? Right when Luo Shuqing was fidgeting restlessly, Luo Nan opened his mouth and said, "I'm hungry." Then he picked up his chopsticks and began to eat the food that had been placed on the dining table. This wasn't a very polite action, but it more or less displayed a rational attitude. Luo Shuqing and Mo Haiheng glanced at each other. They didn't have any intentions of defying Luo Nan. They ate silently as well. No one was able to taste the food. Even the most ignorant Mo Peng didn't have the mood to play games. He looked at this and looked at that, his fat face wrinkling. The dinner ended hastily, and the family took a car home. Luo Shuqing's emotions, which she had been suppressing in public, completely erupted in the car within the privacy of her own home, despicable and shameless mad dogs. They'd been restrained in Quantum Corporation for 5 years, and this father and son are biting anyone they see. This was the first time in Mo Peng's life that he had seen his mother use profanity. He was truly stupefied as he watched. Luo Shuqing wanted to say more, but Mo Haiheng spoke in a low voice. "He's asleep." Luo Shuqing was slightly stunned. She leaned forward slightly and looked at the front passenger seat. Luo Nan was leaning against the back of the seat, sleeping. She suppressed all the words she had in her stomach. Luo Nan's reaction was abnormal no matter how she looked at it. The husband and wife looked at each other once more. They could see the worry in each other's eyes. Luo Nan could only apologize to his aunt and uncle for their worry. He actually hadn't slept. He just wanted to be quiet for a moment and organize his thoughts. But right now the emotions in his heart were churning. How could he calm down? He had been disturbed time and time again, so he could only shift his consciousness elsewhere. The second-level interface of the drawing software opened up on his retina through the external neuron. The interface here clearly had a subtle corresponding relationship with his mental plane. The turbid river water surged with waves, forming a whirlpool of its own. It was as if the whirlpool was a clear indication of his fluctuating emotions. Thousands of playing cards floated along with the whirlpool, forming a chaotic mess. Only the 3 believers in the format pyramid remained relatively stable. Luo Nan's gaze cut past Xia Junping and cat eyes. It didn't stop there. In the end, it fell upon the wraith sign on the technician level. Chapter 99. The red light signified that the wraith sign was devouring. In reality, it was devouring Luo Nan's restless and violent fury. The wraith sign was born from devouring the negative emotions of the human heart. It was restricted by the heavily chained crow here, so it was impossible for it to harm Luo Nan's vital energy. But when such intense emotions squeezed in, it was tantamount to releasing a layer of restriction. As the red light gradually flourished, the wraith sign sprayed out thousands of lines. It was similar to Luo Nan's sketches, but it was 10 times faster. In an instant, a complex and malevolent structure was constructed. 6 eyes lined up, each with a different color. 8 claws extended to the side, merging with the human body. Such a demonic and ugly image was the human-faced arachnid. When this image was completed, Luo Nan's restlessness on the mental plane had already reached the point where it was ready to gush out. Within the format pyramid, the human-faced arachnid prepared to pounce, and Luo Nan's mind leaped. In an instant, the world changed. Luo Nan's consciousness suddenly separated from the car. His mental senses broke free from the shackles and expanded to the limit in all directions. Luo Nan's soul left his body at this moment. The SUV carrying his main body drove off into the distance. Only his soul remained here, occupying an empty plane. Luo Nan didn't feel lonely at all. This was because the range of his mental senses instantly increased explosively by 100 times, 1,000 times, the splendidly lit metropolis, the crisscrossing and speeding stream of cars, the entangled and restless living beings. An inconceivable scene was formed in this moment, smashing into Luo Nan's mind. Roar! Luo Nan cast off all his worries, restraints, and burdens. He ignored the inherent logic of the bustling metropolis and the multitude of living beings. He only responded to the most direct and violent emotions in his heart. He faced the sky and roared. The heavily chained crow rattled and trembled on his soul body, swimming endlessly. And at the front of the chain, the malevolent and ugly human-faced arachnid felt Luo Nan's violent emotions. It faced the sky and roared in response. The two forces interweaved together, forming a surging psychic wave that rapidly spread in all directions. The majestic metropolis seemed to be slightly stifled at this moment. Then it returned to its established routine, as if it wasn't affected at all. On the contrary, the hundreds of crows that had already entered their nests flew up in fright. They attracted the attention of the nearby residents and passers-by, bringing a bit of restless emotions. This kind of intelligent bird seemed to have a spiritual sense that was difficult for ordinary people to reach. It felt the impact of the restlessness in the air and found it difficult to stay in its nest. Luo Nan calmed down after venting out his soul howl. At the very least, he could still think logically. In the soul state, without the stimulation of various hormones, the influence of emotions was reduced. He could ignore Yan Yongbua's deep malice, and he could grit his teeth and forget the mockery and humiliation that pierced his bottom line. He could only grab the last bit of valuable information from the turbid currents that blocked his rationality. He saw me as a fetus. When the wilderness laboratory was in turmoil, he was there, and he was still on our side. But at that time, it was only 2 years after Yan Hong's report and shameless plagiarism. The continuous stripping of veins brought Luo Nan a bit closer to the truth of the past. Luo Yuandao's research in the wilderness could be divided into 3 stages. After the Third World War until the mid-60s, he traveled all over the world without a fixed residence. Then came the most stable scientific research period, which lasted until the end of the 1970s. In the past 15 years, it was also the most fruitful period. Starting from the year 79, his grandfather had mental problems, and the laboratory was in turmoil. Bo Qingwen died, and the entire research work came to a halt. The entire family returned to the city. Based on Yan Yongbua's approximate age, it was very likely that he joined at the end of the scientific research period or before the period of turmoil. This was a very delicate point. He should have been preparing back then. Then Yan Yongbua must be someone in the know. Perhaps he was a participant. He must be. Yan Hong's whereabouts were unknown, but his son had come out. Could his father be far away? Luo Nan's soul was submerged in the lights of the city, but there was an indescribable throbbing emotion in his heart that gradually became clear. So I still have a chance for revenge? The aerial struggle for honor was destined to be a dull and tedious path. But Luo Nan had no other choice before tonight. But now the situation was different. Luo Nan suddenly laughed in spite of himself. This was a pure joy of the mind, but it also had a subtle connection with his main body. Though his main body had gone far away with the SUV, and the distance was already over 10 kilometers, there was always a thread of spiritual response that remained. As long as this response continued, he would not reach his limits. He would even be able to realize some small interactions. This information did not come out of thin air. Luo Nan looked at the human-faced arachnid that was controlled by the chains. This vicious and ugly Darksider life form maintained its usual obedience, but there was an unending stream of energy that carried some information that was transmitted over. This information was combined with Luo Nan's own experiences, allowing Luo Nan to come to a new conclusion. Luo Nan gradually understood in his mind that it was originally impossible for him to achieve the out-of-body state at his current level. Forcefully doing it would probably result in his soul flying away and scattering. He was only able to maintain it due to the assistance of the human-faced arachnid and the blood transfusion. But in the end, it was the heavily chained crow of the self-format that subdued this Darksider life form. Only then was he able to realize this marvelous arrangement. This form was just like in the legends. They used the power of evil to summon and enslave demons and ghosts. This caused Luo Nan to have an epiphany in his mind. The self-format manifested itself as control. It was very stupid to use one's own strength to fight. The most correct choice was to unearth the abilities and power of the human-faced arachnid, a summoned creature. Unfortunately, he only had one summoned creature right now. It was the human-faced arachnid avatar formed from the Wraith sign. Its abilities were powerful, but it was hard to display it in the open. But right now, he could only make do with it. Luo Nan's mind stabilized. His soul body floated down onto the back of the human-faced arachnid. The lich beneath him leaped up noiselessly. It locked onto a direction and directly leaped into the void. A distance of over 100 meters was traversed in a single flash. This was much more powerful than when he was on the warship. Luo Nan's mind was a bit at ease. He was just about to use his heart to experience this feeling. But his heart stirred slightly. Then he saw a black shadow flapping its wings. It swept past at a low altitude and let out a coarse caw from its mouth. It was a crow. It had a very large head. And when it reached a certain position behind him, it no longer moved forward. Instead, it flew in circles, feeling a bit lost. Ink? Luo Nan's mental senses covered over and he finally confirmed. Wasn't this the pet crow he used to practice hypnosis? Luo Nan carefully sized up the surrounding area. Sure enough, it was a bit familiar. It turned out that their family had passed through the River Wu district on their way back to the city. And this place wasn't too far from Blue Bay Community. Chapter 100. It was said that the intelligence of Crow surpassed that of a 7-year-old child. He didn't know if it was because of Ink's innate talent or the effect of hypnosis, but Ink's intelligence was clearly higher than others of its kind, and its intuition was also better. It circled a few times, but it was unable to see the silhouette of Luo Nan. It folded its wings and landed on a protruding area of the outer wall of a skyscraper. It looked all around, and it scratched and hissed. It was clearly using its usual method to arouse Luo Nan's attention. Right now, Luo Nan's soul body was no more than 700 meters away. His heart stirred slightly when he saw Ink act like this. The heavily chained crow clattered as psychic waves converged and shot toward Ink. This was originally just Luo Nan's attempt, but Ink clearly quivered in his senses. The feathers on its body stood up, and it immediately turned its head. It was impossible to see anything in the dark night, but after a moment of hesitation, it still flapped its wings and flew toward the location of Luo Nan's soul body. It began to fly and glide around after arriving in this area. It seemed as if it could really sense Luo Nan's existence. Good boy. Luo Nan felt a bit gratified. He tried using this brand new method to communicate with Ink. The results were indeed much better than simple hypnosis. The feedback he received from Ink was even more direct and clear. There was a great feeling of telepathy. The human-faced arachnid's 6 heterochromatic eyes adjusted their angles. It seemed to be paying attention to this new comrade. Of course, the human-faced arachnid's avatar didn't possess any self-awareness. This was just a two-way connection that originated from Luo Nan. Luo Nan felt that he was like a wizard of the ancient era. The heavily chained crow was his artifact. It was like a giant python coiled around his soul body. The human-faced arachnid was a demon that he summoned. The crow was a spirit bird that he tamed. His power was displayed through this method. Time was of the essence. Luo Nan could not waste too much time because of Ink. Right when he was about to have Ink return, a subtle stimulus was transmitted back to him from his main body. Luo Nan was stupefied for a moment, but he soon discerned that the stimulus came from the hexaear. This miniature instrument manifested an inconceivable effect. After it detected that Luo Nan's main body was lacking in consciousness, it actually captured the subtle sensation of his out-of-body soul. It transformed the information into an even purer psychic wave. Through the sensing frequency, it traversed several dozen kilometers and accurately entered Luo Nan's mental plane. The message was a conversation request, and it was accompanied by a notification from the psychic wave network. Do you want to turn on the remote sensing function? If you refuse to activate it, the conversation would automatically be skipped. If you're a bit late, then you won't have any hope. Holy crap. They're out. Even a working meal isn't this fast. Did the negotiations between the Rainbow Fund and the Construction Society go smoothly, or did they part on bad terms? Luo Nan was disinclined to think about it. He looked at Ink once more and spoke to Crag Burst. Help me keep an eye on them. Share your location and keep in contact. I'll hurry over and meet up with you. Stalking them, right? That's not a problem. But are you sure you can make it over in time? You don't need me to help you intercept them or something? Not for now. Okay then. Let me know if you need me. My Tiger Burst hasn't made a profit since I bought it. Thanks a lot. Luo Nan didn't say anything more to this big guy who insisted on joining in on the fun. He hung up and gazed at Ink in the sky once more. Ink seemed to feel Luo Nan's gaze as it let out two rough squawks. Its plume feathers trembled and it glided more and more cheerfully within the multicolored haze of light. The heavily chained crow's swimming speed above Luo Nan's soul body increased. The human-faced arachnid beneath Luo Nan also felt this change. It raised its bewitching and ugly head and its 6 eyes flickered. It let out a hiss that only existed on the mental plane. Xia City didn't have a true night. All sorts of neon lights built a mottled sky that belonged exclusively to this moment. It was mixed with the rhythm of a carnival that existed everywhere. It seeped into the hearts of every single person who was still wandering outside. Crag Burst opened the car window and let the manic heavy metal music spray wantonly. It was accompanied by surging musical phrases as he roared loudly. He completely ignored the gazes cast by the stream of cars outside. Smash your chest open and embrace the gentleness of blood. Oh 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 oh. Probably no one would think that this fellow was doing stalking work. Crag Burst didn't have this sort of self-awareness. From his perspective, as long as he ensured that the target car in front of him didn't leave his field of vision, then everything would be fine. Tear my throat apart. Kiss. Holy crap. A crow that could be described as brave and fierce flitted across the hood of his car. It scraped the front window and leaped over the roof of his car. It was admittedly thrilling and exciting, but it completely disrupted the rhythm of his music. For this reason, he extended his hand out the window and pointed his middle finger to the sky. Hurry up and smash your head to death. Experience my wrath. Oh 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 oh. At this time, the Hexier transmitted a message. It was Luo Nan, keep up the speed. I'm coming. Chapter 101. Crag Burst stared blankly as a sturdy crow charged in from outside the car window. The crow bumped into the thick leather of the seat, then fell down and landed on the back seat. The 2 feathers that had fallen were blown out of the window by the strong wind that was blowing in and out of the carriage. But in the end, this uninvited guest stayed. Mr. Luo? Yes, it's me. The crow straightened its body and cawed twice. The sound was coarse and unpleasant to the ears, but it surprisingly matched the heavy metal roaring in the car. Of course, the real way to respond was through the Hexier. Crag Burst never would have thought that the so-called, I'm coming, would be this kind of situation. For a moment, he forgot that the crow's sharp claws had already scratched the surface of the genuine leather seat. He widened his eyes and looked up and down several times. Spiritually enhanced people have so many tricks up their sleeves. What is this, a summoner? You share senses with this bird? Yes, that's about it. Since Crag Burst had spoken like this, Luo Nan took advantage of the situation to admit it. This was to avoid looking for other reasons that would make his story full of flaws. Yo, looks like a lot of people have underestimated you. To be able to attach oneself to a flexible object and share one's senses is a brilliant move of the soul sense division. Without the corresponding talent, even an awakened would find it hard to do it beautifully. It's just too wretched. Crag Burst curled his lips. He was a muscle-oriented person, so he wasn't too fond of cloning and incarnation techniques. However, the other party hadn't awakened yet, and he was a toothpick guy who was seriously biased towards other subjects. It was already quite good that he could use such a method. In particular, his attitude of seeking revenge for the smallest grievance and never letting a grudge rest overnight was even more praiseworthy. At this moment, Ink jumped twice on the leather seat and spread its wings to fly again. The Tiger Burst was a military-modified off-road vehicle. The interior of the vehicle was extremely spacious. Otherwise, it wouldn't have been able to fit a big fellow like Crag Burst. However, it was still a little difficult for Ink, which had a body length of nearly 70 centimeters and a wingspan of nearly 1 meter, to flap its wings. After flapping twice, it couldn't exert any strength. Crag burst laughed out loud as he watched. He directly extended his hand, grabbed ink, and placed it on the control panel. Here, the view is the best. Did you see that? There are two cars in front, the blue MPV. Ink's sharp toes gripped the edge of the dashboard, and it stood very steadily. Its black eyes stared at the target car in front of it with great concentration. What do you think? Do you want to do it? Crag Burst had always wanted to play big. No. I don't need it for now. Luo Nan responded simply. Yan Yonghua couldn't help muttering, could it be that we've passed through the domain of a human-faced arachnid? Or is there an out-of-body mental traversing expert paying attention to us? We've been tailed. The dark-skinned bodyguard suddenly spoke. The projector turned on at this time, displaying a real-time satellite image of the surrounding area. The car's AI combined this image with the automatic recording content of the van. It quickly analyzed and marked out a few suspicious targets. The targets with the highest probability were circled in an eye-catching red frame. It was an eye-catching and domineering military-modified Tiger Burst SUV. Its volume was like that of a small armored vehicle. It had a rough four-wheeled structure that could truly gallop through the wilderness. It seemed out of place in the bustling metropolis. This car has been following us ever since we left the restaurant. And the monitoring system shows that the words blue van were mentioned. The military? This sort of arrogant tailing method really did seem like the method of some arrogant soldier or valiant general. However, when Yan Yonghua squinted his eyes to look carefully, he was able to capture a sturdy crow beneath the car's window through the high-resolution image. Clearly, this wasn't some sort of decoration. Interesting. Investigate the details. Oh, hold on. We're in the Riverwood district right now? Yes. Then let's use a different method. Yan Yonghua slowly rubbed his fingers. Then he pulled outwards lightly. Inexplicably, a fine soft needle was pulled out from the skin and flesh of his fingertip. The scene was bizarre beyond compare. The soft needle was as thick as a strand of hair. It was only around 5 centimeters long. One could see that it was made of metal. But in Yan Yonghua's hands, it looked like it was made of flour. He rubbed the soft needle twice in his hand. When he opened his hand again, the soft needle magically transformed into a metal beetle the size of a grain of rice. Yan Yonghua opened the window and flicked the beetle out of the car with a flick of his finger. Tell Jack that it's time to upgrade the hardware. If he wants to obtain the top-notch configuration, then he needs to work harder. Look in the junk of that car. Chapter 102. Let's continue. I'll be your driver for free today. You can treat me later, or you can tell my fortune or something. Can psychics tell fortunes? Telling the location of an enemy. Asking for the location of a goddess. This is also changing fate. Why isn't it called fortune-telling? Crag Burst grinned in laughter. He looked down the car window and saw Ink's earnest appearance. He couldn't help but reach out to pinch Ink's neck. Hey, do you feel like you're being petted on the head? Luo Nan wouldn't tell him that Ink was just a cover to coax him. He simply replied, stop messing around. Huh? Luo Nan's all-encompassing mental senses were inexplicably touched. The window of the blue MPV in front had clearly opened up a crack. It was as if something was ejecting out. It was extremely small and its speed was very fast. It collided with the car behind it in practically an instant. Then the senses were interrupted. The Tiger Burst Jeep and the blue MPV were separated by two cars. The senses were interrupted twice. When they reappeared, they were already on the hood of the Tiger Burst Jeep. Luo Nan's mental senses always had a resolution problem. This time was no exception. He could only faintly sense that it was a tiny beetle-like object. It seemed to have pierced through the two cars in the middle before pouncing onto the Tiger Burst Jeep. Then he completely lost his senses. At this time, all four windows of the Jeep rose up, forming a sealed space. Without the whistling of the wind outside, the rumbling of heavy metal was much more ear-piercing. Cragburst was a bit startled. He snapped his fingers, opened the window. The voice control command was given, but the car's AI didn't respond at all. Not only that, but the car even began to slow down and turn. Luo Nan's warning cut in, "Careful, there's something, F***ck me. I've been bewitched." Cragburst cursed at practically the same time, but he soon calmed down. In the next few seconds, he tried using hand control, voice control, and other methods, but it was useless. The windows couldn't be opened, the speed couldn't be changed, and even the stereo couldn't be adjusted. The car's AI firmly controlled the Tiger Burst Jeep. It turned into a downward trajectory, circling around the skyscraper, and spiraled down. "Is it a virus?" Cragburst judged. "No, it's more like a mechanical bug." Luo Nan spoke of his observations. "In any case, someone is controlling it from a distance." Cragburst came up with the most reasonable explanation. "We've been discovered." Aside from Cragburst and Luo Nan, no one could see that the AI in this arrogant and domineering military-modified Tiger Burst had already gone out of control. The Jeep moved steadily along with the rolling traffic, but it was getting further and further away from its target. At this moment, Cragburst and Ink were imprisoned in this sealed space. They didn't know where they would be taken. Cragburst stopped all of his attempts to seize back control. He swept his eyes over the constantly changing environment outside the car. His eyes unexpectedly flickered with an exceptionally excited light, and the corners of his mouth perked up once more. He turned his head to Mo Sui. "You must have been discovered, but they are targeting this car. You can continue." As soon as he finished speaking, he heavily elbowed the car window beside him. The tough bulletproof glass instantly exploded into fine cracks like a spider web. If intelligence wasn't enough, violence would make up the difference. Cragburst's eyes didn't even blink when he treated his beloved car in such a manner. He extended his hand and tore down the glass window that was already on the verge of collapse. He casually tossed it into the back seat. His other hand suddenly grabbed Ink. He didn't care how the bird struggled, and he simply tossed it out the window. "Go. Don't let me down." Ink was forcefully tossed several dozen meters away, just in time to avoid the downward trajectory of light. It spread its wings just in time to avoid the tragedy of smashing into the glass curtain wall of the building. Luo Nan shouted through the hexa ear, "What the hell are you doing? I want to know what they're doing." Cragburst laughed boldly. His bored attitude from before was completely swept away. "You go keep an eye on them first. Keep in touch. I want to see where they can take me." He extended his hand out from the broken window and waved. Then a hoarse and berserk roar rang out, "Smash your chest open. Embrace the gentleness of blood." Oh, Ink spiraled within the neon glowing mist. Luo Nan's soul body hovered motionlessly in the center of Ink's spiraling and fluttering axis. 2 seconds ago, the blue jeep carrying Yan Yongbua had left the range of his senses. Actually, if he really wanted to give chase, he could easily catch up to them with the speed of his soul body flying through space. However, so what if he caught up? The anti-reconnaissance equipment on the jeep raised Luo Nan's vigilance greatly. If he continued to forcefully chase after them, not only would he alert the enemy, but he would also expose his identity and abilities. Luo Nan's thoughts spun rapidly, and he made a decision in the blink of an eye. Cragburst was clearly worth paying more attention to. Yan Yongbua had taken the initiative to help. Right now, the jeep had gone out of control and Luo Nan was in danger. Luo Nan would feel uneasy if he didn't help. Also, Luo Nan was quite concerned about that mechanical bug. Luo Nan's soul body suddenly descended, carrying Ink as it chased behind the Tiger Burst Jeep. The Tiger Burst Jeep maintained a stable speed, and its direction was the same from start to finish. The Jeep continued to descend after changing tracks twice to switch traffic layers. The tyrannical body of the Jeep continuously ran parallel to several low-altitude public transport vehicles. They intersected and plunged headfirst into the suddenly dimmed layer. The Jeep passed through the dividing line between light and darkness. The clamor of the metropolis was suddenly separated by a layer in everyone's senses. Even the heavy metal vibrating within the Jeep seemed to be rendered with a layer of irritation. The Jeep's headlights cut through the outer walls of the surrounding buildings. The damaged outer walls, the messy graffiti, and some suspicious black and red colors converged together. The recycling layer, due to the phototaxis of living things, people would always yearn for areas with fresh air and sunlight. This was especially true in the bustling area of the city center. The skyscrapers were dense, and the low-altitude transportation network extended in all directions. The residents of the city would go up and down. Sometimes, they wouldn't truly set foot on the ground for several years. A low-altitude public transport 30 meters above the ground was already the limit for most people to descend. This was how the high-altitude race got their name. The problem was that Xia's city was an enormous city with a population of 200 million. It never had the qualifications to waste space. It was inevitable that there would be some people within the population of 200 million who had to survive in the dark and damp space of the lower levels. Without a doubt, this was the slum of the modern city. It was the recycling layer that specialized in disposing of the city's trash. To a certain degree, it was also a place where gangs gathered outside the law. The Tiger Burst Jeep roared as it charged down from the upper levels. It practically instantly attracted the gazes of a large number of professionals in this gloomy space. A sharp whistling sound rang out. Between the buildings, within the ever-narrowing alleys, high-powered modified motorcycles started up one after another. They sped along at high speed. People of all shapes and sizes on the motorcycles brandished malevolent spiked clubs, chains, and of course, firearms. They howled and cursed at the Jeep that was still advancing along the light rail in midair. At the same time, they were also looking forward to it. Chapter 103. The light rail ahead has been destroyed. Automatically switching to off-road mode. The car's AI automatically issued an order. Several seconds later, the enormous Tiger Burst Jeep slid down from the final port. Its four wheels landed on the ground, and it rolled over the primitive and shabby asphalt road as it continued forward. 20 to 30 people had already gathered together. They were the nearby gangs and motorcycle gang members. They cheered in unison. There were even more daring people who sped up and used their spikes to push against the side of the Jeep. They sped up, leaving behind clear and distorted scratches on the Jeep's body. And when they passed by the car window, they made a humiliating gesture towards Crag Burst. "You pig flaunting your wealth. I'm going to poke your ass until it explodes." Crag Burst cracked a smile and returned the same gesture. "Come. I'm afraid you're not tough enough." The curses outside grew even louder, but Crag Burst didn't care in the slightest. He looked all around him, comparing the surroundings to his memories from his early years. If he remembered correctly, the road the Jeep was driving on had nearly 30 years of history. It was originally designed to be some sort of main road in the city. Moreover, it was connected to some transportation route in the wilderness. It was a two-way road with 12 lanes. No matter how you looked at it, it was a fairly high standard. But in the decades that followed, enormous changes occurred in the city's planning. Countless skyscrapers rose from the ground, and their shadows covered the road from all sides. The buildings protruded horizontally, cutting the enormous road into fragments. They completely covered the sky above the road. Following the complete abandonment of the management of the recycling stratum, this road could only be submerged in the layers of shadows of the skyscrapers. The illegal buildings of the surrounding residents wantonly covered both sides of the road. At this moment, there were countless eyes within those grotesquely shaped buildings. They stared intently at the Jeep that whistled past. It was hard to understand what they meant. So many years have passed and this damned place is still a mess. What are the gangs in charge of this area doing? Crag Burst placed his arm across the empty car window frame and shouted towards the outside. "Hey, whose territory is this? Don't you guys usually clean up?" The gang members outside the Jeep paused for a moment. Then their threats and curses grew louder by more than 10 times. There were already people who couldn't bear it any longer. They drove their motorcycles closer, and the sound of air being cut rang out. A thick and long steel chain lashed through the car window. It was a force that could split a person's skull open. Cragburst just lifted his arm and let the chain smash against it. He even coiled it twice before swinging it slightly. The person who attacked was like a kite that had lost control. He flew from his beloved high-displacement motorcycle and was smashed horizontally. This was too ruthless. The motorcycles at the back couldn't dodge in time. In an instant, half of the motorcycles were flipped over. It was a mess. Modified humans. No one knew who shouted this, but the motorcycles that accompanied them all the way dispersed. Some people had already braked and stopped on the spot, no longer following them. But at this moment, a motorcycle that was originally behind them sped up and soon ran alongside the off-road vehicle. The rider grinned maliciously at the car, raised the thick barrel with one hand, and pulled the trigger. The classic shotgun instantly ejected 12 8mm tungsten alloy pellets, covering the entire front of the carriage. Without even looking at the result, the knight swung his arm and loaded the gun. He was about to do it again. But when he raised the muzzle of the gun once more, what met the muzzle was Cragburst's malevolent smile. Cragburst's face was completely unharmed. There was a muffled bang as the rider flew up from the motorcycle. He crossed 8 lanes of traffic and flew into the illegal buildings at the far end. Cragburst leapt out from the car window and took his place. He sat steadily on the motorcycle and snatched the classic shotgun. He roared and used the shotgun like an iron rod. He rushed forward and rushed back, knocking down a group of reckless gangsters in the blink of an eye. He had been cooped up in the car for over 10 minutes, acting as a moving prisoner. That feeling wasn't good at all. The motorcycle beneath him was a bit small compared to his body size, but the feeling of being able to move according to his will and move at will was really great. Cragburst laughed heartily and accompanied the Tiger Burst off-road vehicle. He roared to his heart's content along with the surging melody. As the vehicle advanced forward, the gangsters who had fallen to the ground quickly disappeared without a trace. Only Cragburst and the off-road vehicle remained on the road for a time. Cragburst was singing to his heart's content when he suddenly stooped down and accelerated without any warning. He pulled away at least a body's length of distance in an instant. He caught a glimpse of a line of fire cutting through from the corner of his eye. A hole the size of a wash basin appeared on the road 20 meters behind him. Only then did he hear a peculiar hissing sound enter his ears. Cragburst chuckled. It was a large-caliber electromagnetic rifle. However, the shooter's aim was terrible to the extreme. That's not right. The shooter didn't have any intention of following up after missing the target. He suddenly sensed something and followed the trajectory of the bullet. He couldn't see any human figures within the pitch-black floor, but there was a pitch-black bird flapping its wings and flying. Cragburst grinned and transmitted through the hexa ear, "Where's the division of labor? Where's the trust? Speaking of which, you should be pretty good at scouting. How about we go back and give the wilderness a try? Then you need to be prepared to be tricked." Luo Nan casually replied. He used ink to announce his existence to Cragburst. But what truly killed the sniper was actually the human-faced arachnid siege hammer. Right now, the pitiful fellow had fainted in front of the window. He probably didn't understand what was going on from start to finish. Luo Nan's sole body floated within this dangerous area. The range of his senses was close to 1 kilometer in diameter. An omnidirectional, multi-layered, panoramic picture was presented to him. He suddenly discovered that he should be the most genuine sniper at this very moment. He was in existence like a ghost. He had a panoramic perception with a diameter of 1 kilometer. Of course, he also had the siege hammer, which could ignore the vast majority of physical defenses. These factors converged together. He could be said to be like a fish in water in this complex environment. He could eliminate those malicious personnel in the quickest and most convenient manner. Luo Nan truly had some awareness of being an ability user when he used these methods. Yes, this was the ability user of his imagination. This was an extraordinary power that stood above the normal world. Naturally, this was the best proof of the correctness of formatting theory. It was also at this time that Luo Nan truly understood what kind of restriction his weak fleshly body was when it came to his true abilities. Hey, Scout. Go ahead and update your intelligence. This instance's level is too low. Did your enemy specifically use this place to annoy me? Luo Nan responded, I feel like you should stop the car and properly inspect it. Maybe you can find some clues. Good idea. But this doesn't contradict with scouting ahead. I need a tool. It's best if it's a moving obstacle that can stop my disobedient baby. Let me look. Huh. But a bewitching red light suffused the eyes of the other person. He was actually completely unaffected. He quickly adjusted the muzzle of his gun, and flames exploded on it. The metal bullet carried a terrifying initial speed. It crossed a distance of several hundred meters in an instant, directly piercing through the location of Luo Nan's soul body. This shot did not touch anything substantial, but it truly gave Luo Nan a fright. The other party's spiritual sense was very sharp, and his judgment was very accurate. What was even more inconceivable was that he was immune to the siege hammer. Luo Nan had pierced through all of his material defenses, but it seemed that Luo Nan's attack aimed at the mental plane had missed. That gunshot had alarmed Crag Burst. The other 3 firearms had already opened fire at this time. They were old-fashioned gunpowder weapons that were commonly seen in the black market. Their power was quite astonishing. Crag Burst cursed loudly. The motorcycle suddenly sped up and swerved outwards, dodging the whistling rain of bullets. It narrowly brushed past the twisted blades of the road roller. Luo Nan was left behind. Crag Burst let the motorcycle run away crookedly. Crag Burst jumped up, and his strong body easily leapt over 4 meters into the air. He directly stepped onto the cockpit of the road roller and smashed it with a heavy fist. The driver was sent flying from the other side. Only now did the others adjust their muzzles. But no one was able to block Crag Burst's fist. They fell from the road roller one after another. Crag Burst instantly cleared the obstructions. Then he tried to control the big fellow beneath him to make it stop immediately. As long as it didn't move, Crag Burst's beloved Tiger Burst Jeep wouldn't be smashed into smithereens even if it couldn't avoid a collision. The distance between the 2 vehicles was less than 50 meters at this time. A collision and a crushing would only take 2 or 3 seconds. Crag Burst had operated this type of large-scale machine before. He felt that he could do it. But then Luo Nan's sharp warning sound penetrated the bottom of his heart in the form of psychic waves, dodge. Luo Nan's lack of professionalism was completely exposed at this critical moment. Though he gave a warning, he didn't indicate the direction of danger. Crag Burst needed to make his own judgment. Fortunately, Crag Burst had ample experience. He was able to discern the degree of danger from Luo Nan's hasty attitude. He didn't hesitate at all and leaped out from the cockpit. He didn't even stop on the road roller, he just flipped over. A plump metal pineapple was tossed into the air at nearly the same time as his movements. It fell right into the cockpit. F***ck me. Crag Burst was shocked when he saw this scene from the corner of his eyes. A grenade. And it was a defensive grenade with the most terrifying killing radius. This sort of crude old-fashioned weapon had an enormous destructive power. It still had a certain place in the military. It could receive miraculous effects in special situations. The grenade was clearly pressed in someone's hand. The person had calculated the time to ignite it. It exploded with a bang while still in midair. Over 1,000 shrapnel were like a whistling storm, covering a vast space of 50 meters. With such an astonishing killing radius, even the gang members who had just fallen from the car were swept up. They screamed miserably. Crag Burst wasn't known for his agility, but his mind worked quickly. He borrowed the force to rebound just as his body landed on the ground. He caught up to the road roller with a stride and stuck his body to the side of the car. His series of judgments couldn't be said to be incorrect, but someone was waiting for him here. A fist came smashing straight at him. The fist's speed and timing were all grasped to the peak of perfection. But the most shocking thing was the inconceivable weight. Cragburst received it with a single hand, but his entire upper arm was forcibly deflected. He could only watch helplessly as the heavy fist smashed into the side of his face. Cragburst soared into the air amidst the flying shrapnel and tumbled to a spot a dozen meters behind the road roller. An enormous rumbling sound came from right in front of the road roller at this time. The 5-ton Tiger Burst Jeep collided with the 50-ton road roller at a speed of nearly 100 kilometers per hour. The former's kinetic energy was reduced to zero in an instant. The front of the car caved in and parts exploded in the air. It was a tragic sight to behold. Although the road roller didn't immediately roll over the Jeep, it maintained its previous speed after a slight pause. It continued to push the scrapped Jeep forward. More and more parts of the Jeep were swept up by the vibrating wheels. It seemed that the most miserable fate was unavoidable. Luo Nan had witnessed everything that had happened before and after the road roller. He was stunned for a time. But at this moment, his attention was placed on the person who had caused all of this. Yes, it was the person who had ignored the human-faced arachnid siege hammer attack. The person who had played dead when Cragburst boarded the car. Then the person who had tossed out a defensive grenade and seized the opportunity to strike Cragburst down with a heavy punch. Now the person had jumped from the road roller onto the Tiger Burst Jeep. Chapter 105. Luo Nan was already able to clearly see the person's appearance. He was a white man, a rare sight in Xia City. He looked to be in his 40s, maybe a bit older. The scars on his face showed that he had been through a lot. Of course, Luo Nan had a deeper impression of this person's left eye. It was a mechanical eye. If one looked closely, they would find that there were no decorations on it. The cold metal structure, as well as the red light in the center that made one's heart tremble, made it difficult for one to treat it with a normal heart. This guy isn't a normal human. Luo Nan's mental senses had been covering the target this entire time. He discovered that this person's appearance was just as it indicated. The metal composition and related structures on this person's body were far greater than that of a normal person. They're modified humans, right? Cough, cough, damn it. Cragburst's voice came through the hexear. Cragburst had been struck down from the car by a fist and had been covered by the destructive shrapnel of the grenade. If Cragburst had been a normal person, he would have died a long time ago. However, Cragburst had reported his safety to Luo Nan at the first instant. Cragburst also understood the relevant information of the enemy, displaying his robust physique and experienced. Modified humans? Luo Nan had some understanding of the relevant concepts. He saw that there was still some time before Cragburst would catch up, so he used his senses to scan in greater detail while exchanging information with Cragburst. You're saying that he's like the military's mechanical warriors? What mech warrior? He's just a modified human. There's no other way to describe it, and this modification has been abolished for almost 20 years, at least on the surface. Is he over 40 years old? Yeah, pretty much. That should be it. He's pretty good at using military equipment, and he's pretty good at scamming people. But a guy like him must have special privileges. He has to report to the SCA every year. Why is he here? Cragburst felt that this was incomprehensible, and so did Luo Nan. The gang members of the recycling stratum might seem lawless, with all kinds of weapons, guns, and grenades, making it a mini arsenal, but that was because the government had basically given up on the governance of the recycling stratum. As a matter of fact, most of them had extremely low clearance due to their criminal records. Under the strict control of the credit clearance network in today's society, they could only be tyrants on the recycling stratum. Once they stepped out of the recycling stratum and into the public, they would be closely monitored. If they did anything sensitive, law enforcement officers would appear above their heads and send them to jail. It was hard to imagine that a special forces soldier who had undergone military modification would come here to make a living. His special authority was as eye-catching as a lighthouse on the SCA's surveillance network. The government would never allow such a dangerous person to work with the gangs in the recycling stratum. As for special situations like committing a monstrous crime, it would be more meaningful for them to escape into the wilderness instead of here. No matter what, this guy has angered me. I will have a good talk with him. Cragburst gnashed his teeth on the other side. But soon after, he slapped his thigh. Found it. It's here. Keep an eye on him, I'll be right there. He found the high-powered motorcycle that had fallen in the middle of the road, turned around, and chased after it. In about half a minute, he would be able to fight for his reputation again. Luo Nan focused his attention on the altered human. Actually, Luo Nan was more interested in this person's current behavior than in identifying his identity. After striking down Cragburst, the altered human arrived atop the heavily deformed jeep. It tore apart the roof and entered the driver's compartment, which could no longer be seen. Next, the altered human smashed the control panel with a punch. He extended his hand inside and fished for something. Luo Nan couldn't help but associate this scene with the loss of control of the car's AI and the metal bug ejected from Yan Yongbo's car. Without a doubt, Yan Yongbo had done something to the jeep. His methods were certainly closely related to the metal bug that had sunk into the jeep. From then on, the development of the situation deviated from the normal track. And right now, this altered human seemed to be acting as a liaison, a recycler, retrieving the metal bug. This kind of behavior was quite compatible with the recycling stratum. And from this point of view, perhaps the metal bug was a very crucial thing. Perhaps it involved some deep secrets of Yan Yongbo's? Luo Nan's mental senses became even more meticulous when he thought of this. Though his soul body couldn't do much right now, he wanted to lock onto the target of the other first before considering his next step. The altered human was certainly aware of his detection, just like how he had sensed the siege hammer. However, his thirst for his target clearly surpassed everything else. He just raised his head and shot a cold glance, but he didn't actually lock onto Luo Nan's position. He just continued to lower his head and search. Suddenly, the altered human's arm that had extended into the control panel paused for a moment. His cold and stiff face had a change, forming into a slightly sinister smile. Then he pulled his hand out. His fingertips were pinched with a metal bug the size of a grain of rice. It was motionless right now, more like a work of art than a tool. The altered human raised the metal bug before his eyes. It was like he was looking at a treasure, carefully sizing it up. The smile on his face deepened with every glance. The intensity of the red light in his mechanical eyes continued to grow. Luo Nan took advantage of the metal bug's appearance to use his mental senses to cut across its surface in an attempt to understand its internal structure. But he discovered that it wasn't easy to balance distance and precision at the same time. He was separated by a distance of over 100 meters, and the precision of his senses was at most on the millimeter level. It was already very difficult for him to analyze the interior of the jeep. Right when Luo Nan was considering whether or not he should get a bit closer, a high-powered motorcycle rumbled from behind the road roller. Soon, it circled around the reamer and ran alongside the deformed jeep. Cragburst gave a provocative gesture to the driver's seat atop the motorcycle. "Hey, come at me again if you have the guts. I'll let you use only one hand." The altered human's smile faintly faded. His ice-cold mechanical eyes cut to Cragburst's side, but he didn't immediately respond. Cragburst's provocation continued, but it was mixed with something else. Cragburst, used to be from District 55 of the coastal garrison. Give me your name. I'll burn incense for you later. The altered human's lips and teeth opened and closed slightly within the jeep's driver's seat. He spoke for the first time, but the feeling was that he was mocking Cragburst, a soldier. "You're not?" Cragburst discovered that there was a problem with his judgment, so there was no need for him to be polite. He was just about to exert his strength to leap and attack. But in the next moment, his opponent made an odd move. The altered human opened his mouth and stuck out his tongue. He placed the metal bug between his fingers on it, rolled it up, and sent this toy into his mouth. There was even a clear swallowing motion. He actually swallowed the metal bug. Chapter 106. As soon as he finished speaking, Black Jack leaped up and jumped down from the other side of the cockpit. His timing was perfect. At that moment, the road roller pushed the jeep to the place where the gang member's car had been flipped over. At that moment, the group of people had yet to leave. They stayed in the middle of the road and looked at the road roller that was moving slowly towards them. At first, they were dumbfounded. Then, they shouted and wanted to drive their motorcycles around it. But at that moment, Jack jumped down from the jeep and grabbed a motorcycle. He then sped up, circled around the other side of the blade, and sped back in the direction he came from. "You were a boss just a second ago, and now you're dodging?" Cragburst cursed loudly. He lifted the front wheel of the motorcycle and forcefully made a U-turn. The motorcycle scraped dangerously past the twisting blades, and then the engine roared as it accelerated in pursuit. The speed of the two motorcycles was more than 100 kilometers per hour. In the darkness of the night, they disappeared in the blink of an eye. It wasn't a problem for Luo Nan's soul body to chase after them, but Ink had some difficulties. The two motorcycles had already driven out of his range of senses during his moment of hesitation, and they chased after them. On this side, the road roller pushed the off-road vehicle, rumbling as it rolled over. Everywhere he passed, there was a mess. The gang members cut a sorry figure as they hid to the side of the road. They cursed Cragburst, but even more cursed Jack. Luo Nan's mind stirred slightly. He listened attentively and discovered that some of the content was very interesting. But it was fragmented and fragmented. He was unable to grasp the gist of it. Because of his attention, Ink also came over, and it was very eye-catching. One of the gang members was annoyed and happened to have a gun in his hand. He raised his hand and was about to shoot, but in the blink of an eye, he fell to the ground like a wooden stake, unconscious. The gang members, who had been happily scolding him, were all stunned. They looked at their comrade who had suddenly fainted, then looked up in a daze. At this moment, Ink spiraled down and stopped on the eaves of an illegal building by the side of the road. It looked down at the group of weak chickens known as the gang. In the darkness, the black crows stared at you with their dark eyes. On the ground were their companions who had inexplicably fallen because they had offended them. Such a scene made the dozen or so members of the gang at the scene all weak in the knees. Crow continued to remain silent, and the more it was like this, the more anxious and uneasy it was. Luo Nan actually felt a bit awkward being by Ink's side. He didn't want to stare at each other like this. Gathering information was the most important thing right now. The problem was that Ink was a crow. How could it communicate with humans? It was currently the center of all the changes. Following Luo Nan's decision, this Darksider species spat out a spider silk-like thread, projecting it into the turbid flow of emotions. The human-faced arachnid was like a skilled fisherman. It used the spider silk to hook up fish one after another. It tossed them to the lowest level of the format pyramid to stand side by side with the images of Xia Junping and cat eyes. However, they were much fainter. They were like fragile bubbles that could burst at any time. In the real world, there were over a dozen gang members. Without exception, all of them were brought under the control of the human-faced arachnid. There was nothing that could be easier than this when the emotions of fear spread wantonly. As the mastermind behind the scenes, this was the first time Luo Nan saw how the human-faced arachnid controlled its target. He was stupefied for a time, so it was actually this simple? In any case, with the establishment of the local area network and the formation of the mental connection, the following matters would be much easier. A spiritual wave was transmitted from the Hexier approximately 2 minutes later. Cragburst had taken the initiative to contact him. Fuck. Scout, where have you been? Luo Nan was able to guess the result just by listening to the emotions in her voice. You lost them? That black rat. He can't do anything else, but his ability to dig holes in alleys is top-notch, and he even shot from the back. Hey, where's the scouting ahead? Your speed is over 100. I can't keep up. Of course, Crow wasn't able to keep up. Luo Nan obviously wouldn't explain this to Cragburst. F***CK, 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 F***CK. Cragburst let out a string of expletives. You need to pick a useful one for your spirit attachment. You need to be fast. Something like a peregrine falcon or a spear falcon. Aren't they all good? What's with a crow? Luo Nan didn't get angry despite Cragburst's complaints. The more Cragburst complained like this, the more it showed that this big guy who came from the military didn't treat Luo Nan as an outsider. Moreover, Cragburst began to trust and rely on Luo Nan's abilities. This was a very good start. Sure enough, Cragburst came to his senses and felt embarrassed. He coughed twice. Since I know you have this ability, I'll help you buy a good bird from the society later. As long as the price is right, it's not impossible to get a mutant. Sure. You can help me pick one later. Chapter 107. Who the hell knows where I am? Let me look at the map. Oh, Riverwu District's Deshang building. The top looks bright and fresh, but the bottom looks like this? Deshang? Luo Nan remembered that this was the information he had just obtained. It looked like Cragburst's pursuit ability couldn't be underestimated. They were already very close to their final target. Wait a moment. I'll be right there. Ink soared into the sky, shuttling back and forth between the intersecting buildings. Luo Nan's soul body rode the human-faced arachnid to the side. The crow's flying speed was really too slow. The human-faced arachnid didn't even use a third of its strength. It followed leisurely and leisurely. Luo Nan didn't put any energy into flying. Instead, he used the panoramic view of his mental senses to observe this dark place that he had heard of for a long time but had never set foot in. The turbid night of the recycling stratum gave him a very subtle feeling. At the very least, he didn't have too many experiences of flying in the night sky. It was more like he was swimming in a stream. And as time passed, the panoramic view cut open the deepest parts of this area and presented them before his eyes. This feeling continued to deepen and mutate. It wasn't just water. It was sewage. Everything presented in the panoramic view. The concrete details were far too jumbled and messy. There was no time to analyze them one by one. However, the things that were briefly scanned, such as gangs, prostitutes, drug dealers, casinos, and the abstractions of violence, lust, greed, numbness, and so on, interweaved and dyed together to form countless turbid colors that splashed over his head and face. Everything converged into a roaring turbid current that washed over the entire recycling stratum. It converged into the surging tide of emotions that drowned the entire Xia city. In the end, this was just a tributary. It was a bit dirtier. The human-faced arachnid was quite comfortable in this environment. It was like a fish in water. But soon Luo Nan discovered that the human-faced arachnid wandered in the turbid current of emotions. It had a slight appetite. Weren't these turbid negative emotions the food it craved the most in the past? This fellow relied on these sorts of things to grow stronger and stronger. But right now, it seemed to be disdainful. Luo Nan tried to communicate with the human-faced arachnid. His analysis of the human-faced arachnid's information was far from complete. If he forced himself to understand it, there would be a lot of confusion and ambiguity. In the end, he could only confirm one thing: the human-faced arachnid had already undergone a certain level of evolution, so much so that its original food was no longer able to satisfy its needs. After all, there was no fish that relied on drinking water to survive. Perhaps the evolution of the human-faced arachnid was equivalent to a transition from a plankton to a fish? Should he congratulate her? Right when Luo Nan was racking his brains over the problem of the human-faced arachnid eating, the Deshang building was already in sight. Crag Burst had been waiting impatiently for a long time. Right now, he was standing on the 10th floor of the skyscraper, gazing into the distance. When he saw Ink flying over, he waved his hand excitedly from afar. "Hurry, I found an entrance here." Ink flapped its wings, searching for a place to land. How could Crag Burst wait any longer? He pointed to his shoulder and said, "Over here, I guarantee your safety." Luo Nan wasn't polite with him. He gave Ink an order and directly descended onto Crag Burst's shoulder. Immediately, the two of them began to exchange information. Everything below the 30th floor of the building, including the underground buildings, has a zigzag structure. The division between the inside and the outside is actually an isolation zone. Many of the buildings adjacent to the recycling stratum are built like this. Crag Burst had researched quite a bit of information while he was waiting. The isolation zone is a one-way passageway. Security is tight and all permissions are locked down. There are no normal channels to enter the business district of the building from the recycling stratum. It's the same no matter who it is. Outside of the isolation zone is the world of the gangs. They have dug through countless rat holes here. They have dug through not just the Deshang building, but the neighboring buildings as well. There are quite a few people living inside. Luo Nan listened to Crag Burst's chatter and matched this part of the situation with his own understanding of the information. He organized his words and said, "According to the information I've obtained, there is an underground fighting arena here in the Deshang building. People often come here to participate in gambling fights. Many of them are big and wealthy guests who throw money away. Jack is the ace host and referee of the fighting arena. He might also be one of the bosses behind the scenes." Underground fighting? Crag Burst's interest was immediately piqued when he heard the word fighting. How come I've never heard of this before? I've been to practically all the fighting arenas in Xia City, public, private, legal, and illegal. It's probably because this place is reserved for minors. The periphery of the Deshang building's isolation zone was just as Crag Burst said. It was dirty, messy, and crisscrossed with dark tunnels. Luo Nan was able to obtain a lot of useful information from the mouths of the gang members. In addition to the panoramic image support of his mental senses, Luo Nan was able to move more smoothly and freely than the gangs entrenched here. Crag Burst originally had a belly full of anger because he was unsuccessful in his pursuit of Jack. He wanted to vent. But he never expected that Luo Nan would just cheat and open the map the moment he arrived. He only saw the shadows of the gang members chasing and weaving their way in and out, but he could only eat the dust from behind. The number of people he actually met was few and far between. It was hard for him to put his strength to use. He wasn't an idiot. Naturally, he could feel that Luo Nan wasn't just using the crow to scout. Instead, Luo Nan had a higher level of perception at play. Good boy. There's something wrong with your ability. In terms of range, even cat eyes isn't this abnormal. Cat eyes? Luo Nan was quite interested in this unruly woman who suddenly appeared in his own pyramid. Since the intensity of their advance wasn't that great, he just asked casually, "What's the range of her long-range perception?" Her all-encompassing perception ranges from 50 to 70 meters. Her psychic perception has a limit of 3,720 kilometers when she's in a good state. How much? Luo Nan nearly choked awake. Are you talking about kilometers or meters? It's kilometers without a doubt. Crag Burst laughed out loud. It's inconceivable, right? But this is the terrifying aspect of long-range perception. As long as the feeling comes, there's no reasoning with you. Back in the day, Cat Eyes did one of the most amazing things. She used her extrasensory psychic perception to guide a million-ton nuclear-penetrating warhead. It smashed directly into the underground lair of the mutant species in the wilderness. It was a standard hit to the soul. A bunch of arrogant big shots from the military all knelt before her. Luo Nan didn't know what to say for a time. He had been proud of the range of his soul-body senses before, but he immediately encountered a standard that he could only look up to. But when he thought about it again, such an amazing person had actually entered his pyramid without a trace. She was more or less affected and suppressed by him. The feeling was quite subtle. Cragburst concluded, in a certain sense, Cat Eyes' ability should be the closest type to that of a psychic, but it isn't that mysterious. Aside from being unstable and being powerless against the Darksider species, she practically doesn't have any other flaws. So, by all means, don't offend her. Otherwise, she can find you in any corner of the city. She can take advantage of the time when you're in a dream. Crack. Cragburst made a motion of twisting Ink's neck and laughed loudly. He reached back to pinch Ink's head. You really need to be careful. I felt that you and her seemed to be innately incompatible that day. Huh? There's no way out? You're tuning into the Romantic Tales YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.